Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the second Wax Fusion show. Thank you for joining. Max is running a little bit late. I'm going to have Max from Neon Space here in about 15 to 20 minutes. So for now, I'm just going to cover some progress on week one of Wax Fusion, and then we'll probably BS a little bit about some general wax stuff and DeFi related topics and whatnot when Max gets here. But let me pull up Wax Fusion real quick. How's everybody doing? All right, so not a bad first week at all. We have almost 3.7 million wax in total value locked, which is pretty significant for a wax project. It's over six figures in US dollars, which is not something you see that often on wax. So I'm pretty happy about that. We have about 225 unique users so far on the protocol, 245 LS wax holders, and the CPU rentals have started to pick up. We had about 500 wax or so in the last day come in, which was able to generate a pretty decent APR. Um, the APRs are recalculated once per day. So around 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, there's going to be the new rate that starts. And that's going to be based on everything that we took in the past 24 hours, which includes those CPU rentals and everything else from the staked wax and whatnot. Based on the current stake that we have right now in the protocol, which could change throughout the day, but if it stays the way that it is now, around 8 p.m. tonight, the APR for the next day is going to be about 20%, and that's just on holding wax basically. So it's pretty good, especially when you consider that staking yourself, you'd only get 8%. You wouldn't have the liquid capital. So with this, after 8 p.m. tonight, it's going to be about 20%. And then on top of that, you could actually take that LS wax and do other stuff with it, which brings me to Alcor. Let me pull that up real quick. All right, so I got Alcor open. I'm going to go to the farms page and search for LS wax. And as you can see, there's like, wow, there's a whole bunch of farms here for LS wax. Some of them don't have a ton of liquidity in them, so the APRs that you see might not be, you know, very reliable because once you put in some liquidity, it's probably going to tank that a bit. But the LS Wax and LSW pool is currently at 9%. LSW is Alcor's liquid stake token. So if you were to get into this pool, basically you'd be earning your APR on LS Wax, you'd be earning the APR on the LSW that you have in the pair. And then on top of that, there's also farming rewards and trading fees. So I want to make a point to actually focus on this pair a bit more. This one is not incentivized directly by the protocol's ecosystem funds. This has just been incentivized by us for now. Actually, that's a lie. This one is incentivized by the ecosystem funds, but I want to add more to it. I think I want to talk to Avril from Alcor, and I think what's up, include no. I think if me and Avril could maybe work together and incentivize this pool a little bit, or even if he doesn't want to and I have to do it myself, that's fine. I just think it would be such a huge draw for Wax users and possibly new users coming to Wax because you're basically doubling your APR if you get into a pool like that, assuming that it's able to sustain a decent reward on it. So it's way more attractive than just holding Wax, and it just opens up so many more doors on the chain because all the different things that are going to happen from all this liquidity and all the trading fees and all the volume that's going around, it's just going to feed back into itself and feed into other ecosystem tokens. I'm really happy with it so far. Um, What's up, Nifty Wizards? Is that Mike? I'm definitely open to doing a live stream with the Dust team. That sounds great. Um, yeah, and then we have the Wax LS Wax pool on here, which has roughly 300K wax worth of liquidity in it, and that's at 11% right now APR. So that's happening with 88 LS wax per day in rewards, which is actually pretty awesome because that means even if we were to put in 1,000 LS wax a week, or yeah, 1,000 per day in rewards into this, which is only like $30 right now, that would be able to sustain 10 to 11% APR on like, what is that, 3 million wax worth of liquidity. So that would be pretty significant. Joel, how you doing, Joel? Um, Anybody have any questions so far? Cool, cool. All right. Yeah, there's like 20 or 30 different farms here already. So I definitely suggest taking a look at Alcor. Um, if you're running a project in the ecosystem and you don't have your token pair on here yet, feel free to reach out to me because me and Arnie, who works on this with me, we've been basically just giving rewards to a bunch of different projects in the ecosystem because we think it's helpful for everybody. If we can help reward your liquidity pair, generate more liquidity and volume for you, also generates more volume for WaxFusion. And with the flywheel mechanism, everything kind of just feeds back into itself and helps everybody. So that's the goal here. Uh, I want to go over some proposals that I made on GitHub real quick. I just want to get it pulled up. So I'm going to paste a link to this in the chat, but I've created 4 different issues on GitHub. I want to upgrade the contract for WaxFusion. I've already written the code for it. I just have to write some tests and then submit it for auditing and whatnot. But there's a couple of issues right now. One of them is, as I mentioned, we've been reaching out to people and incentivizing some of their farms. And then there's also some farms that are built into the protocol itself. They're stored in the table, and every week they get created automatically by the contract. But for the ecosystem ones that aren't part of that default ecosystem fund, um, it's tough because only the token issuer is allowed to create a farm for a token. And since this contract is the token issuer and is under a multi-sig with the Wax team, it's a bit difficult for us to create any farms and help incentivize random tokens out there. So if we want to do that right now, we either have to create a multi-sig transaction, which is, a lengthy process. And I don't think the Wax team wants to deal with that every single time that we want to create a farm for someone. Or the other option is that we just send LS Wax to the person who has the other token, like the project owner, and have them create the farm, which works out fine, but it's not really ideal. We don't want to just be sending money to people all the time and just kind of hoping that they do what we want with it. So I want to basically add something to the contract that allows us to basically just send LS Wax to it with a memo that specifies which liquidity pool we want to incentivize, and the contract will just automatically create the farm on our behalf. So it would be a lot simpler that way. And then anytime I want to create a farm, I could just do it myself. So that's one issue I created. I like LSW a lot, Joel. I've always said since we launched Wax Fusion that I don't see it as competition whatsoever. Like they both serve their own purpose and they both help the ecosystem. I think they actually help each other as well. They complement each other. Like as I just mentioned with the LSW LS wax pool, if you go and provide liquidity on LS wax versus wax right now, yes, you're earning your APR on the LS wax side of it, and then you're also earning maybe some farming rewards. But the wax that you have in that liquidity pool is not earning anything, so it still has the same issue that Wax Fusion was created to solve, basically. So if you were to pair against LSW instead, both sides of your liquidity pool are now earning those staking rewards while you also have liquidity. So it's basically 100% efficiency. It can't get any better than that. So I like LSW a lot. Will Wax Fusion have a DAO? I don't know what that will look like yet, and that's something I have to run by the Wax team. As I said, this is all under multi-sig with the Wax team. It's all open source and audited. So this isn't like one of my random contracts that I own where I could just go and do whatever I want all the time. Um, if I'm going to make a significant change to the protocol, that's something I have to run by the Wax team and preferably the community as well. That's why I created these public issues on GitHub. I would like to get people's feedback whenever there is an option to upgrade the protocol. But we have thought about DAOs. One thing that I've definitely thought of is that the ecosystem fund that I mentioned that's built into the contract, certain liquidity pools get incentives every week from a portion of revenue. Those would be like Wax, LSW, Taco, Nefty, and a couple other ones, basically the big ecosystem tokens. I think it would be really cool if maybe we had a governance system where, for example, LS Wax holders could kind of vote on what allocations go to what pairs. And yeah, just other things like what the protocol fee is on certain stuff. I think all those things would be pretty cool if they could be managed by a DAO. But at the same time, a lot of thought went into this protocol and things are designed a certain way for a reason. So we would have to really sit down and decide what things are good for people to be able to vote on and what things should not be able to. So that's something that would require a lot of thought and some time. What's up, Novix? I was holding LSW to get airdrops. Yeah, so what were they doing there? Partnering with some ecosystem projects and then the project would kind of just airdrop LSW holders? Or is this something that Alcor was like providing themselves? Yeah, the Wax team funded this. They sponsored it. They audited it, and yeah, it's under multi-sig with them and the OIGs and some block producers. It's all in the documentation if you want to check it out. They're also supposed to be providing some of the protocol-owned liquidity that's mentioned in the documentation, which is a big mechanic in the protocol. That's coming from the Wax team. So yeah, I try to mention that often when people complain that the Wax team is not around. They don't know if they care about the ecosystem or whatnot. They're the ones who sponsored this, so they do care, and definitely appreciate it a lot because without them, this wouldn't have been possible. Um, how's it going, Optic Red Room? Uh, yeah, there's a couple other issues here on the GitHub. I don't know if many of you really care about this stuff because it's a little bit technical, but another one is so currently, as I mentioned, new farms are created each week on Alcor. Uh, all revenue that earned by the protocol in the previous week, it just gets stored in the contract for the whole week. And then when the previous farm ends, a new one is created automatically by the contract, which is cool. But the issue with that right now is that every week, liquidity providers have to sit there and monitor their positions. If they see that a new farm popped up, they have to restake again into the new farm, which is not a great UX. So, what I've proposed is there's apparently an option to extend an existing farm that would not require people to restake. So, I pretty much want to just keep track of if an incentive has already been created for a certain liquidity pair. We would just deposit and extend that farm instead of creating a new one. to avoid people having to go through the whole restaking process every week. It's a bit annoying for everybody. I just realized I don't have the issue open the whole time in the right tab. But then the third one here is implementing a max APR. Just want to make sure that it shows up on the screen quick. Can you guys see this or is it kind of blurry? See if I can make it a little larger. Okay, so basically right now, the way that it works is every 24 hours, whatever revenue that the protocol earned or rewards that the protocol earned in the previous 24 hours, um, they start a new 24-hour reward window on WaxFusion. So all the staking rewards you get from SWAX and LSWAX, the auto compounding that happens, uh, the APR is based on obviously how much is staked in the protocol at that time, but also the rewards that were generated in the previous 24 hours, which is cool. But the problem with this is that with the CPU rental system, for example, yesterday somebody rented like I think 100,000 wax or something like that, and it generated over 1,000 wax in rewards. And as I mentioned later, at 8 p.m. tonight, when the new window starts, the APR is going to be roughly 20%, which is, you know, it's not too crazy, but the problem is that 24-hour window is going to restart as soon as that revenue is distributed. Hopefully, you guys can follow what I'm saying right now. After tonight, when 20% APR starts for 24 hours, there's zero wax left in rewards. And then we're depending on new wax to come into the protocol via voting rewards and CPU rentals. And what this could end up in, let's say we have a slow day or a bad day, maybe the following day the APR is only 7% instead of 20. That's not ideal. I think if we have a day when there's 20% APR worth of rewards, we should just cap it at like 12%, right? Because that's still like 50% more than what you would get from staking yourself. It's still good, it's attractive, but there would also be some rewards left over to move into the next day and then have another day earning 12% rewards. It keeps it more sustainable and attractive over time, because I don't think we want people showing up and seeing, the APR is only 7 or 7.5%. They're going to sit there and be like, well, I could stake it myself and get 8. How are you getting people to rent CPU or net? Any thoughts on that from anybody? How are we getting people to rent CPU or net? What do you mean exactly? Like, which one are they renting? CPU, we don't really have an option for people to specify net. But if somebody does want net, there's also the power up option on Wax Fusion, which is just the standard Wax system power up. We don't charge a fee for that or anything. So you can adjust the slider on there, choose how much net and how much CPU you want if you choose to do it that way. In terms of renting in general, like how we're doing it, basically all the wax that's deposited into the protocol, as well as the protocol owned liquidity that can never be removed from the contract, those are all used to rent CPU to people. So when you deposit into the protocol, you're not just earning from the staking rewards, but you're also earning from potential CPU rentals because it's your wax that's being rented out. So why wouldn't we share most of the revenue with you off of that? Any other questions? Speaking of the CPU rentals, I actually reached out to a couple of people who currently run CPU rentals out there, because I feel like it just makes more sense for them to build on top of Wax Fusion in some cases, because the people that I've spoken to told me that from their CPU rentals, they're lucky if they generate roughly 11% a year in APR because, yeah, maybe you're charging more than that in terms of the actual rental, but if most of the rentals are 1 day long, you're basically getting paid for 1 day. You're generating staking rewards for 1 day, but then the following 3 days, you're not generating anything, and your wax is locked up the entire time. If you were to deposit your wax into Wax Fusion instead, you basically are a part owner in a CPU rental in itself. And on top of that, your capital is liquid. You get the LS wax. So you then have an opportunity to go earn more rewards through something like providing liquidity on Alcord farming or um, when, let me hold on, when LS wax tap game. Yeah, that's not really something that I'm interested in. But I think it would be cool to reach out to maybe like Woofy even or any of the other Tapper games out there and see if we can integrate somehow. That's basically been what we've been trying to do the whole time. We've reached out to anyone that we could think of that's running any sort of project on Wax. If it's a Telegram bot or whatever it is, we're trying to get LS Wax integrated into everything just because the more exposure that we can get for it, the more it helps everybody. And it's not just us that it's helping because this platform helps the whole ecosystem through the ecosystem fund and the protocol owned liquidity, which is continuing to lock up more and more wax permanently. There's a lot of mechanics to this that, in my opinion, just help everybody. So the more exposure we can get, the better. Speaking of that, I kind of want to wait. I kind of wanted to wait for Max to get here to talk about some of this stuff, but I really want to start thinking more about outside of the wax ecosystem. I need to go through my CPU rental logs and see what I'm actually making. I haven't done the math, honestly. Yeah, I'd actually be curious to know the answer to that because I've only heard from like 2 people so far. So it's a very small sample size. But especially if you have like a bunch of wax just sitting there that's not getting rented often, I don't know if that's the case or not. But yeah, I mean, you could be earning in one place and then also have the liquid capital earning in another place. Um, I feel like it would probably be better, but I'm also obviously biased. So take my word with a grain of salt, I guess. I'm actually curious to see what the demand ends up looking like because so far it's hard to gauge because we just started. Not a lot of people know about the CPU rentals here yet. So you can't really take the first week and try to extrapolate it out, but it's done pretty decent so far. Uh, the first week, I was depositing some of my own personal money or personal wax to help keep the APR up while people were learning that Wax Fusion existed. But I haven't had to deposit any wax in days. And today we're going to have 20% APR. Yesterday we had like 11 or 12. So people are catching on. I'm just curious to see how it works out as the TVL grows higher and higher because we're at like 3.8 million wax right now. Um, you'd have to assume that the rental behavior or efficiency would be a bit different if we had, let's say, 100 million wax in there. I don't know how much demand there really is. I have 200,000 wax available and lucky to rent out 3K a day. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How many devs are working on Wax Fusion? Well, it's hard to answer that accurately. Really, me. I mean, I wrote all the code, I did everything. Arnie has helped me a lot with brainstorming this. We've been planning since last year, like March or April of 2023. So many late nights up, just like talking about all the different protocol mechanics and how things would play out if we did one thing this way, or how it's going to play out if we do it this way. Um, so he's not a dev, but he's helped me a lot. There's a couple people who help me in the community channels and whatnot. And obviously the wax team, they put Aaron and one of Aaron's guys. I don't know if you guys know who Aaron is. I know Include Nell does. But he's one of the main guys that develops for the wax team. They helped me audit this repeatedly over like a several month process. Um, so I guess you could say that there were also two other devs working on it in terms of auditing. But as far as writing the code, it's all been me. Front end, back end, contracts, everything I've done myself. The good part about that, though, by the way, is like if I was to drop dead tomorrow, the protocol is open source. Other people have access to sign multi-sig transactions, so it can continue operating without me. Everything that's needed for it is out there. So I'm not needed. I'm just the dev. But yeah, I wanted to talk more about expanding outside of the Wax ecosystem a bit. Let me pull something up real quick. So I talked about this a bit last week. This is DeFi Llama. Let me expand it so you guys could see it a little better. But this is basically the site that people out there in the space, in the crypto space, they go to find new projects. I guess there's also Coin Market Cap and CoinGecko and whatnot, but I would say this is one of the main ones right now. This is DeFi Llama. I'll post a link to it in the chat in case you guys aren't familiar with it yet. But yeah, people go here, they look at what's hot. So, for example, base has been the thing for the past year. Everybody's hyped about base. If you're trying to find some new gem to get into and make a bunch of money, you're gonna click on the base tab here, and you're gonna see all the projects that are on base. You're gonna scroll through it and try and find one that maybe has a low market cap, and then look at the website, see if it's good, and then go to it, right? And then you make a decision if you want to get into that project or not. Wax is basically non-existent on sites like this. But the good thing about DeFi Llama compared to some other sites out there, a ton, yes, also ton. DeFi Llama actually does support Wax, believe it or not. A lot of sites out there don't because we're not integrated with certain API providers like Infura, and our tech is so much different than the EVM stuff they support. So we have a good deal here that they actually support Wax, but we're so far down. Like no one's even going to find us. You have to scroll all the way down. We're ranked 153 right now. Oh, look, Waxdow just got on there today. Cool. So when I came here a few weeks ago, the only projects that existed here were Alcor, Atomic Hub, and DeFi Box. Alcor's TVL on here was about half of what it is now, and TVL is how things are sorted on that main page that I was just on. So the higher your TVL, the higher you're going to rank on this list, and the more people are going to see that the chain exists. I've submitted a bunch of projects here. I've got WaxDAO, WaxFusion, Taco, and Alien Worlds listed on here in the past couple of weeks. This has boosted our TVL and our rank significantly. Also, Alcor, I made an adjustment to their adapter on DeFi Llama to include LSW's TVL. So it basically doubled what was on there previously, or it increased it by like 50%, I should say. So this is a good start. I want to keep doing things like this. If you have a project on Wax, even if you don't have a lot of TVL, I really suggest getting on here. Like what on Atomic Hub counts as TVL. I have to let me link you the let me pull up the GitHub real quick. But I think they're counting maybe Atomic Market and Atomic Assets. But there is some weird rules with TVL because, for example, they won't count anything that's a staking contract. They count that step separately. So as you can see, um, Waxdow's TVL says 1498. This is because in the settings, for sorry, 1 second. Max is here. Let me let him on.
Hey, what's going on? Sorry,
Max, how are
got
you?
I got confused with time zones, but I'm good.
That's totally fine, man. I appreciate you joining. We're just talking about DeFi Llama right now.
Oh, nice. Yes, I love DeFi Llama.
So,
I love seeing WaxFusion's numbers growing on DeFi Llama recently.
it's so awesome, man. $116,000.
Hey, you're closing in on like liquid stake wax from Alcor, and it's like week 2, I think, the end of week 2,
Not
right?
even, yeah, we're like 12 days in right now.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say yeah, because it's like already at like a third of the TVL of what LSW is in like less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, man, it's pretty awesome. You want to introduce yourself in case anybody here doesn't
Oh
know
yeah, yeah.
who you are?
Hi, I'm Max. I'm co-founder over at Neon Space NFT. So we also do an NFT project on Wax. I've been a big blockchain kind of enthusiast for a long time. I got into like mining bitcoins in 2014 as a hobby, and kind of like never lost interest in the crypto space, and have been kind of participating in DeFi and crypto mining and NFTs and everything crypto related for close to 10 years now. And I love, like, I was a visual effects artist for many years. I worked in lots of like big movies in like Hollywood, kind of like lots of Marvel movies. If you've seen like Age of Ultron, I think was one of the bigger ones I worked on. And then so like using some of the art skills I had and obviously the fascination I had with crypto, I got together with a few friends and we started making our own NFT project, and that's what Neon Space is. So yeah, we're still actively kind of like working on our stuff, even though the NFT space is very dead in the moment. It's still really fun, like community wise. There's a lot of really like active communities on Wax, especially more than I feel like there's active DeFi volume or stuff happening. But yeah, we got into Wax like maybe 3 years ago, and have been grinding out a collection and participating in the scene on Wax ever since. And it's really fun to see that scene evolving the way it has over the last 3 years, with new things like, WaxFusion, and then also seeing who the block producers, that weren't really producing stuff of value back like 3-4 years ago, kind of shifting out and making way for newer people like you, Mike, who came in and like, got in and started building stuff that was like more approaching the dev work side of like, especially of like Wax blockchain producing. You kind of approach it from like a user standpoint, where a lot of the people in that community are very, dev focused and not really participating on the NFT or FT side of things in Wax at all. And so I feel like it's really nice to see, you're creating project or like tools that help projects on Wax, like WaxDAO. I used that very recently to make like a meme coin of my own just for fun too. And it was like, didn't require me to go to the Block Explorer or figure out how to use any of the contract deployment stuff. It was very like packaged for somebody who isn't a developer. And I don't know, that kind of stuff, like creating farms, creating like stake pools and all that stuff is super simple on Wax. I mean, it's possible on a lot of blockchains, but man, it's so straightforward on Wax. And I don't know, I've been a huge fan since I got into it. So still around, still farming, still really enjoying what's going on. But yeah, that's a short intro, I guess.
I appreciate the kind words. But just to touch on the topic of other block producers being dev focused and whatnot, they are very imperative, obviously. Like without them, I wouldn't have been able to build the stuff that I built. But it's definitely nice to see some diversity, I think is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. Also, just like seeing like the OIG points being rewarded to things that aren't like as redundant as it feels like they had been in the past. Like it seems like there's a lot of the times where like, new things that are being awarded points, at least like a few years ago, were things that are like, it's another iteration of something that already exists. And that seems to have changed a lot also over the years, where it's like the focus of what's being built and rewarded and incentivized to be built on Wax has shifted a lot more into things that actually benefit the ecosystem. Same with like what Wax Lab spends its money on, that's also really kind of shifted into things that are, worth funding versus in the past it felt a little bit like, I don't know who's making these decisions and why doesn't it come to a vote. But you know, it's definitely fun to see how this stuff evolves over time, and it's definitely evolved quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been very happy with most of the changes that have happened with like OIG scoring and even the decisions I see from Wax.
Same.
Actually, they've increased the marketing points. I don't know if most people out there know how OIG points work or what this even means. But basically, there are people out there who kind of incentivize certain behavior from validators on Wax, and there's a scoring system to base those incentives on. So somebody who provides a service that has a high score, they have a better chance of making money that month, essentially. So there's different categories within that scoring system. Exactly. I'm on the wrong tab.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there it is.
But yeah, that's exactly right. What was I saying? So there's different categories within that scoring. There's like development, there's community engagement, there's marketing. The marketing multiplier used to be, I think, 9 points, if I remember correctly. Marketing slash ecosystem development or whatever it's called. So they'll rank you on a product or an initiative between, let's say, 1 and 5 points. So if you get a 5 and the multiplier on that category is 9, you have 45 points. They increased the marketing multiplier from 9 to 12 over the past few months, which I'm fully on board with, even though I don't really have many marketing products, because in my opinion, that's what's most important right now, which is actually kind of how I landed on this DeFi Llama page and where I was going with that. But
yeah,
I really would like to see more expansion outside of the Wax ecosystem. Not even necessarily people leaving. Like, I'm not saying become multi-chain, even though that is an option. But just in general, there's like platforms like DeFi Llama out here that exist where people go to find new projects. There's plenty of other stuff that might be different than DeFi Llama, but it's the same. It's the same point that I'm trying to make with DeFi Llama. If Wax does not exist in any of these places, it doesn't matter what we build on the chain. None of it matters, because if no one's ever going to find out about it and we can't be integrated anywhere, it doesn't matter, So we need to be focusing on stuff like this.
Right. I think there's definitely like some progress towards that, like multi-chain ecosystem been made recently in Wax, especially with like the bridge for Woof moving now from like Solana to Base, and I think relatively soon into Ton as well. But like to move from something like Solana into something like an like what is it, like not an EVM chain, but although yeah, I guess an EVM chain like Base, but then also into like an EOSIO chain like Wax, that's not super possible outside of that Woofy bridge, and really wasn't an option before that happened. So I feel like that's actually really fucking cool. Like that Woofy token was like an accidental, like amazing addition to like integrating Wax into like kind of the rest of the liquidity environment in DeFi. Like the fact you can move from Solana into Wax and vice versa with relatively low friction, and like the liquidity for those Woof tokens on both sides is deep enough, to do reasonable moves across chain like that. Either way, like that just wasn't a thing, like 5 months ago. Like, and that's I'm excited about that. Also, the addition to Ton. Ton is not a chain. Like Ton and Solana aren't super trivial to move into from something like EVM, like Base chain. So now being able to move Woof from Base into Solana directly like that. Although I guess, EVM chains are a little bit more connected to Solana, but from Wax into Solana, that's not a trivial move to do. And that's really cool.
This is actually what I was trying to interrupt you with a minute ago. I was just going to add one caveat. The Woofy move was not accidental. It was definitely intentional. That was their whole goal with the entire thing. So
that, like, beyond it being a meme coin, like if it was just launched as a meme coin, it's like it's definitely much more utility of a utility token than a meme coin at this point because of that cross-chain ecosystem that exists. And I'm kind of amazed with how robust it is. I think a lot of the liquidity comes from the team behind Woofy, you know, because it's like there's like $100,000 in the what is it, Woofy USD or Woofy
Wax
Ethereum
or
pool
Okay.
on base chain. Yeah, like, and then I think that's just sat there since launch, and there hasn't ever been rewards incentives or anything like that. Hey, what's up, Ferris? But yeah, so that's like, and that just maintains, and that definitely like creates, you know, arbitrage between those chains, which creates volume between the pools, and like all of that is already great. But the connection between, you know, like the Solana network and something like the Wax blockchain, I feel like that really does start to illustrate how Wax can act as kind of a layer 2 between, you know, multiple layer 1 ecosystems. Like it can be a layer 2 on top of both the EVM and the EOSIO and the Solana infrastructures, which that I'm kind of excited about.
Absolutely, man. My only issue so far, and I understand the reasoning behind this, by the way, but obviously there's only certain tokens that are supported. They have to be careful because, you know, with bridges you need access to the contract on both sides of the bridge. Oracle's running to handle all of it, and plus like legal issues with whoever might be running said project. So there's a lot there.
That's true. The other side is like I'm a little weary of bridges personally, as someone who's been in DeFi for a long time. You can imagine. I mean, I got hacked on a bridge exploit before in the past, and it sucks. Like it moves. I caught there's an exploit like maybe almost 2 years ago at this point on the Harmony network. The Horizon bridge was hacked for about $100 million, which is pretty much all the counterpart to the bridge assets. And I saw the wallets of the bridge, like that held the counterpart assets. I saw them getting drained about 4 minutes after they were drained. So I had, like, before the Twitter storm hit and everybody knew, like I had a little bit of a oh shit, time to get out. And it still hit me for like 40% of the value I had trying to move out of a chain that had no liquidity left. And that like I said, that was within the first 10 minutes of the exploit. Had you waited like 30 minutes, you would have lost like 70-80%. And I think like I said, it's 2 years ago. The stable coins like USDC on that chain are still worth like 18 cents. And it's been 2 years. You know, I have a wallet that has like 15,000 of those stable coins sitting in it, and they're worth like $3,000 right now. And good luck getting the $3,000 because the liquidity is so fucked. And again, it's been years. So like bridges have like a risk associated with them that just is like a counterpart risk that you don't control. Like if you're holding a bridged asset, it's up to the person who's, like you said, they have access to both sides of the contract. If they, you know, that access is compromised somehow, or if, you know, some type of like exploit or even malicious, like intentional thing by the people who have access to those contracts happens, you can do everything appropriate. You can be using hardware wallets. You can be everything offline. Your seeds are totally safe, but the assets that are in those wallets and the backing from them can be gone in a heartbeat, and it's devastating. The Alcor, I mean, the Wax Teams bridge has never been hacked. So as far as I'm aware, like they're pretty good at managing their bridge, but it still like scares me because, you know, all those bridges had never been hacked until they were hacked.
What I would really like to see, and what I'm honestly thinking about working on, because I want to see LS Wax bridge to base.
Yeah.
I think it would be great to have it on Aerodrome, for example, which
Same.
most people on Wax don't even know what this is, and they'd probably be mind blown if they actually joined it and
It's
saw
so
it.
fun.
But also just getting exposure to people on Aero and having them come back and whatnot.
Right.
I brought this up to the Wax team a few times and haven't really gotten a response. I'm not sure if they just kind of like forgot it, or they don't like the idea or whatever. But I'm thinking it might come to a point where maybe I should just build one myself. If something like that gets built by somebody, what I would really like to see, and what I don't know why this doesn't exist yet, there should be like a layer 0 Oracle, or even just a custom built one. I know Alien Worlds built the teleport bridge from that's open source. There's a contract for that on GitHub. There should be something like that where, let's say, the top 21 block producers are signers on it, and it
Mhm.
requires, let's say, 15 signatures, just like the chain does. Um, it would not cost us anything extra. The data from the EVM side from Infura is basically free.
Yeah.
Um, and on the Wax side, we already have the nodes, like we're running them. This is not a large thing. You could just add this to any existing node that you have, or
Yeah.
a secondary backup node, so you're not clogging up your block reducer node. It would be no extra cost to anybody. All it needs to do is just basically have the code written and have somebody take the initiative.
Yeah. Dude, that is interesting too. Like the open source kind of bridges I really like. I also like the layer zero. Like, have you seen the like just the layer zero chain, like ZRX chain, and how they kind of create bridged assets that work between like I guess the rest of the EVM, but the contract is like the same on each chain that way, and so the total supply is shared across every blockchain that way because the main contract lives on layer zero. I think that's a really clever way to work around it too.
I like that too. It's just, yeah, a lot of this stuff requires custom contracts. So it's
Yeah,
like for Wax, some contracts have a burn function and some have a retire function, or action, I should say. And
yeah,
some contracts, like the standard one, supports burning the tokens but then reissuing them later. And a lot of people who have
yeah,
created tokens on Wax DAO, they have a burn option that burns the tokens and they can't be reissued later. So
yeah,
a token like that would have to get deposited into a bridge wallet and sit there, and then be issued on the other side and
yeah,
burned again.
exactly.
So
Which definitely kind of creates that like honeypot scenario again, where now you have the bridge wallet holding all those tokens, and it's a very nice little payday for somebody who can exploit it, if it can be exploited. You know,
absolutely,
I
which
mean,
also is part of the reason, like, WaxFusion is open source and multi-sig and all that. That doesn't mean it's like, 100%
yeah,
guaranteed to never have an issue. There's obviously smart contract risk, but my point isn't about WaxFusion. It's about, I really want to see more initiative towards open source developments on Wax and multi-sig.
yeah,
We don't even have. I feel bad. I always feel bad saying this because, like, I support Alcor so much and I love them. So it's
mhm,
not like a dig at them or anything. We don't even have an open source Uniswap version 3 clone on Wax, and it's like, it's our main DEX.
yeah,
Even
yeah,
if, when I bring up, like, oh, now that Fusion exists, like, let's say a lending platform can be built uh, for LS Wax. Like, I want to also mention LSW there, but
yeah,
like, you realistically, you cannot have a financial protocol built on top of a closed source contract. Is it like you can, but nobody's going to take it seriously from anywhere
yeah.
else.
It's a very trust based like thing at that point. You'd have to isolate the pools that have the LSW in them. Like I think that's a decent solution that like open source money markets do, like AAVE or like Compound. Like they will allow certain like collateral assets that they're just isolated. I think recently like USDT has become an isolated asset where it's like, yeah, like you can, use it as collateral and you can borrow, but those loans are specifically loans from people who are lending to the USDT pool. Like you can't supply to like Compound or AAVE and have it by default lend out to those assets. You'd have to like specify that you want to participate in isolated markets, which is great because then it's like, yeah, the main protocol isn't exposing everybody to the risk of those potentially risky assets. Even though I don't know, USDT is kind of over and over again proven that they can manage their peg. Not saying that it's not eventually gonna like, I don't know. USDT is a whole nother like that you can argue back and forth all day.
I think all the focus around that is just like, man, like, crypto's in big trouble if something happens to USDT anyway. So
Yeah.
does it matter what asset you're in at that point?
I like the current lawsuit that came from Celsius. Did you see that one?
I
Against
believe so. Yeah.
USDT, where they're like trying to say that like the USDT, like the Tether Foundation wasn't allowed to liquidate the Bitcoin that they had. Because basically Celsius is like a quick backstory here. Celsius is similar to like FTX, where they had like been using their depositors' money to gamble and lost it all. and then everybody's money was gone like overnight, and they stopped withdrawals and all that stuff. And basically what they had done is like, they took, I think, like $2 billion worth of Bitcoin, sent it to Tether to take a $2 billion USDT loan from them. And then when they started to go insolvent and were asking for Tether for more loans, and Tether like denied the extension of more loans, and then Tether started selling off their Bitcoin collateral as their loans were becoming insolvent potentially, because that's the reason they took the collateral in the first place. Well, now this lawsuit alleges that Tether, as a creditor, took actions to basically self-benefit from like this collapse in a way that they weren't allowed to. Like they aren't allowed to, liquidate all their collateral while everyone else is left fucked. So now they're trying to claw back like $2 billion from Tether, which I don't know. Good luck. But
Well, that's pretty interesting because it's like, all right, I need a loan for you, and I'm going to deposit this collateral just so that you feel secure. But also, you can't use the collateral if I default.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you're not like, they're basically claiming that like Tether wasn't allowed to liquidate that amount of like Bitcoin, because because of the like laws that protect like companies during bankruptcy, which is like the fact that they did it like 2 or 3 days before they announced bankruptcy. They're like, oh no, that's still illegal, and like we're gonna sue you and claw back the money. And Tether's like, yeah, fucking right. But I mean, they'll definitely go to court for it, I'm sure, and they'll just argue forever. And I doubt it gets anywhere near $2 billion, but they might settle for something. I also feel like Tether just has the money to foot the bill. It doesn't really matter. Like,
yeah, I haven't really seen any of these proposed lawsuits really pan out to anything.
Yeah, it's not. The most recent one was the Ripple one, which basically ended in Ripple winning. I mean, they had to pay like $100 million fine or something trivial compared to the billions they were initially charged with.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to do that to begin with, but they did anyway. And then they were like, oh, well, we fucked it. Like, we pissed away all of our money. And now you, as our creditor, weren't allowed to ask for your money back. And there's also many lawsuits that are going against individual depositors of Celsius who had withdrawn their funds like days or weeks before the collapse. A lot of those people got sued, and a lot of that money was being clawed back. And a lot of those people fucking paid that money back to Celsius because it's not worth like pursuing in court. Like, you'd go broke. It's crooked as hell. Also, I know a lot of people were telling me to like that Celsius was a great like way to make passive income, and the whole time I was just like, I don't understand. First of all, you can make more than this on chain without giving your money to someone else. Like, they're offering you 20% on your ETH. Like, you can make like 30 to 40 if you know where to look. But secondly, it's like, if you participate, you don't own shit. Like, you own an IOU from some like, and they're not even based in the US. They were based in like London, I think. And I'm in the US. So I'm like, yeah, it's a no from me. But I don't know. Overwhelmingly, that's happened. Like, I've stayed away from a lot of those collapses, mostly because whenever someone like referred like to Terra Luna, for example, people are like, oh, this is such a great way to like make money on stable coins. And I like looked into it and I was like, I don't understand. Like, how are they making that 20%? It doesn't like add up. And it's just like, this is like my main way of making income. So like, if I don't understand how the farm is making money, then it probably doesn't make sense, was my at least assessment. And so I was just like, I don't know, if it's working for you, great, but I'll do my own strategies for stable coins that don't involve this. And then of course it all went to shit, and I don't know, I wasn't like telling people, hey, it's a scam, but I was also like, I don't get this, so I'm staying away.
I mean, especially in good market times, like a bull market, or even like right now, it's kind of like a lull in a bull market.
Yeah.
All the coins out there are doing relatively well enough where their values are inflated. So there's so many places where you can just take your stables. Like, you could provide stable to stable LP on some farming platform like a DEX, and just get emissions in the DEX's token and sell them as you get them.
It's like easily 15 to 20% doing that right now without like hunting for the best place. Like, you can do 15 to 20% on autopilot. Like, especially DEXs like Aerodrome and stuff, like there's stable pools there that are just volatile, like V2 style liquidity pools paying like 18%.
I'm making like 45% off ETH USDC right now. Wide range too, like wide range for those of you out there who don't know. Like, it's basically normal liquidity, how you would think of it in the old days. It's not any of this new like concentrated, complicated stuff.
Yeah.
You just deposit half and
Zero to
half,
zero
and
to infinity.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
15% to stake LS wax. Nice. Yeah, there you go. Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
there's
then you
always
and then
go ahead.
I paired mine with LSW, and now I have LSW with LS Wax in the Alcor pool, and the pool gets paid like a 10% reward, while both of those assets are making like 8 to 15% on their own, and the swap fees from people swapping between those two generates like 6% or so. So it's like, yeah, I'm making like 30% on just my wax with exclusively wax exposure.
I was
That's
literally
fucking
just saying
awesome.
this. I was
Yeah.
just saying this before you got on, like trying to explain. I,
It's
I also want to reach out to Alcor, and even if they're not down to do it, I really want to focus on incentivizing that pair to draw people to it, because to open people's eyes to like what the
Alcor
possibilities are.
hasn't done much to incentivize any of their LSW pairs. If they're going to incentivize any of them, it should be that one, because that one I feel like connects LSW liquidity to the rest of like LS Wax liquidity, which is being incentivized and driving volume and stuff. So I feel like that pool alone that's a great way for LSW to just get like connected to all that. If anything, you should create a second pool, or maybe make the fucking fee lower for it, so it's like a 0.0 whatever percent, because those assets are so close to value to each other. You're not really that at risk of like the volume change, and so like the lower the fee is, the more likely the volume goes up with lower liquidity, I guess.
It's also the easiest way to kind of get people to understand and just to draw them to any pair, because if you were to pair, let's say, LS Wax or LSW versus Wax, and you're trying to explain to somebody like, yeah, but you can get 8% here and then also this percent here, well, it's like that person's going to realize, well, yeah, but half of my liquidity in the pool is not auto compounding.
That's yeah.
With LSW and LS Wax together, that's like,
But it's all auto compounding, and because they're both auto compounding, the fluctuation in price is less dramatic, and over time one asset isn't outpacing the other. Theoretically, I mean, I still feel like LSW might, or LS Wax might outpace, because it has a higher revenue like potential earning. But either way, like if you're doing an LS Wax and Wax pair, like at least the way I always do those liquidity pairs is I'll do maybe like 90% of the wax that I'm going to put into that pool. I'll turn that into LS Wax, and then 10% I'll leave as wax. And then I'll make a very tight range that's very favoring the LS Wax. And then over the course of like a week or two, as the auto compounding raises the value of LS Wax relative to wax, my pool composition changes and eventually goes 100% back to wax, at which point I withdraw the liquidity pool, and then again take 90% of the wax, mint more LS Wax, and then re-enter the position and let the appreciation of LS Wax move me out of range. And that then outpaces just holding LS Wax by a lot. Like you get all the trading fees that move while you're moving out of range, and the reward incentives from the LP for doing that, which is kind of great.
that's awesome. Yeah, because that's actually a good point too. If you don't account for the incentives and the fees, and you just strictly talk about the conversion of one asset to another in a liquidity pool, I think you technically would actually be losing out, or what's the term I'm looking for?
Like
Opportunity cost or whatever.
yeah, like decay loss from the. I guess that's how I'd like to think of it. It's like, yeah, it's definitely like you'd be doing better unless the fees of those trades are outpacing the like decay of the value. Since
Because, yeah, you're selling on the way up rather than selling the full batch at the highest price.
Yeah, exactly. So then the whole thing at that point, it's like I would want the 0.3% pool. But that's also why, most of my liquidity is in the LSW LS Wax pool, because that doesn't have like anywhere near the same amount of, impermanent loss potential from that kind of like market shift. It's both assets being so close together. It's basically like pairing two stable coins, which is awesome.
What's great about all these different pairs too, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because I keep saying this stuff, but I think a lot of people don't fully get it because they're not like as into DeFi stuff as we are.
Mm-hmm.
As the price diverges from the auto compounding, just naturally happens regardless of what happens on Alcor, right? Like, forget Alcor exists for a second.
Yeah.
On WaxFusion or on LSW, the auto compounding increases the value of the token by itself. So if that token is now listed on Alcor and it's in a pair and it's supposed to be at some specific price. Like let's say USDT is paired against Wax, and then USDT is paired against LS Wax. One of those pools is now going to be different than the other because of the auto compounding, changing the value. This creates arbitrage, and it's just naturally just creates more volume, like so much more volume is going to
Yeah.
come on all these exchanges and fees for everybody because of all this auto compounding mechanics, forcing people to arbitrage stuff to bring the prices where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what I did. Like I said, I used the Wax DAO front end to make myself a meme coin, mostly just for fun, to kind of experiment with like, you know, liquidity pools and how to generate volume like that. And also in response to like everyone's making meme coins on Wax in the wake of Woofy, and a lot of those people are making them with like absurd like transaction fee or taxes that like transfer taxes that make the tokens completely unusable, in my opinion. So I wanted to make something that was like, I'm just gonna, you know, release half the liquidity, just stealth launch it, don't tell anyone to buy it, just put it in Alcor and see what happens. And then what I've been doing recently is like, so initially I launched it paired with like Wax and then Woof, and then now it's like I've split. I also had Neon was the other pair I added, but someone in the Neon Space community did mention that they were like, first they thought that there was an affiliation between Neon Space and the FTW token, so I was like, let's not mislead people that way. And then secondly, I was like, they were like worried that the pumping price of FTW would result, if the price eventually dumped, would result in Neon dumping, which I agree that's like on me to like pair those. So I ended up taking like 80% of the Neon liquidity out of the founding pool and just donating it back to the Neon Space giveaway wallet. Just to make sure it doesn't, you know, have exposure to be dumped. But either way, yeah, you can see it's pulled up on the screen now. So I've changed the liquidity, so it's now split between Wax and LS Wax, and that alone is creating, you know, like you're saying, arbitrage opportunities. As LS Wax appreciates in its auto compounding value to Wax, people are incentivized to buy FTW for Wax, then sell FTW to LS Wax, and then sell the LS Wax back to Wax to make their profit. That trade volume puts up, you know, that puts volume into my pools, and then every week I claim all the trade fees that the pools earn, turn them back into FTW, and add them to the liquidity rewards. And that's what's been like driving my little APRs up higher and higher, which is, it's a fun experiment. It's just like dick around like that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting seeing these crazy APRs, especially on like Wax FTW and stuff. It's hard to gauge sometimes. This is something that came up in, I think Louis Pixel Mini brought this up. This total staked here, I don't think is actually the total staked. I think it's the total liquidity in the pool. Right.
That's true. Although I did stake 100% of the liquidity is staked. So that's 247% is on the total liquidity. And so what I do is with the wallet, like the wallet that owns the liquidity, it's also earning the stake rewards, that 247%. And then every week when I claim the fees, I also claim the stake rewards, and I just put everything back into the pool. And you can see how the pool is, it's in increments of 30 days. And so I do that kind of harvesting and then extending of the pool every week. And so every week that 30 days like extends back to 30 days. And that way anyone who's participating in the farm doesn't have to restake to continue to earn those fees. Like you can stake it and forget about it, and you know, 5 months from now it'll still be earning rewards, and you'll still have been part of all of those, instead of like, because I did notice in my LSW pools on Wednesday when the new rewards came in, I had to restake to the new reward distribution.
This is we went over this before you got on here.
Okay, yeah.
I created an issue on GitHub to fix this. I want to extend instead of create a new one. And I actually already wrote the code for it. I just have to write some tests and then submit it to the Wax team to look it over and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the move. I think because that's like, yeah, then people don't have to take action to continue to benefit. Although the people who are quickest to take action benefit pretty well, because when I first added my FTW LS FTW, or I mean LS Wax LSW pool, when I staked that, like the moment those pools went, I think I was getting like 1400% APR for the first like few minutes before more people started jumping in.
Yeah, which also, that's something I had to weigh in my brain as I thought about changing to extending instead of creating a new one, because I was thinking about it. I was like, well, I don't know, you know, maybe it's actually a good thing to drive engagement and have people thinking about LS Wax every week. But I think it's a bad UX though. We don't want people to have to do that all the time.
Yeah, the auto staking is nice to have it like continue. That's kind of what I was thinking for doing it with the FTW stuff. But then it's also, I don't know, it's really interesting to like, you know, you see I've made those farms. I've started adding a few other LPs, like you said, having different assets with volume. So I started making a little bit because I saw Brawl took a massive shit. So I was like, I don't know, bought a little Brawl and paired some Brawl with FTW. I think TLM is another like pretty decent volume token that has liquidity outside of Wax. So like creating those pairs, you know, just drives more volume. And then I think that's kind of like part of what I'm doing with my little token experiment here is like, you know, how can I establish a volume base for this meme coin that then generates enough trade volume from basically balancing that initial base of liquidity, so that I can use the fees to incentivize, you know, the Wax side of all that liquidity. So basically, like I said, every week, the goal is to claim all of the fees from every pool and then distribute them into the LS Wax and the Wax liquidity pairs.
Yeah,
Which,
so Max is basically talking about kind of manually protocol-owned liquidity, the same concept as
yeah,
WaxFusion, right? So
yeah, and it's cool to see it like play out, and also it's fun to see like people like I said, I created that token using Wax DAO, not really knowing how to create a token or anything. But you know, I mean, I have been in crypto long enough to like understand how to create like I guess a liquidity infrastructure that isn't going to just dump. But it was really fun to see like putting a token into Alcor and not making any announcements about it, not telling anyone to do anything with it, and like even if someone asks, it's like, oh yeah, it's a meme coin experiment. Like, should you buy it? No, it's I'm just having fun with it. Like, there's no expectation of it to do anything other than me messing with it, and you know, so it's fun to see the people who do participate and who do still ape in despite it like, you know, not only not being advertised, but when I do talk about it, it isn't like, oh, you should participate, like, oh, come join in. It's more like, oh yeah, I'm just dicking around. Maybe, you know, don't invest in this. Isn't an investment, you know. But it is still fun because there is like immediately volume that starts hitting once you've created an arbitrage opportunity. There is, you know, bots or accounts that immediately will start trading and creating volume, and that is just really fascinating to me.
I think,
Wapaka's probably part of that too. I know he runs some arbitrage bots.
yeah, and I think Alcor actually has one they run on their own to balance all their pools out, I guess, obviously, but also
Yeah,
I'm sure also to make a profit. But you know, yeah. So we don't even need people to necessarily know, like, to be smart enough to look at the pools and be like, oh, I understand the concept of arbitrage opportunity and
yeah,
auto cut. They don't need to because it's going to happen regardless. If the price changes, the bots will do it. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I did that for Neon too. I created a Neon LS Wax pool. Although for Neon Wax, it's like a pool that we have. We don't own the Neon contract. That's I think MV owns that one. It's the tokenized NFT, which I think he used to work with like the Cake team and stuff. But either way, because of that, you know, it's not super straightforward to create farms when you don't have the ownership of the contract that, you know, one of the tokens in the farm exists in. And so that, and the fact that like we don't want to like ask a bunch of people like to migrate or like do anything. So it's like, okay, well, I still want to create that volume that comes from the arbitrage between Wax and liquid staked Wax. So then I just created like a quick like Neon LS Wax pool and also Neon like Wolf pool just to kind of create that volume, and it works. Like you can very easily see like the volume increases, the like transaction that moves through the Wax Neon pool benefits from those other pools existing.
it's so cool to see it in action because it's like
Right.
we've been talking about this stuff for the past year and change. Like
Yeah.
I know I first messaged you and told you that I was working on
Yeah.
like a liquid token. What, like
That
over a year
was
ago,
over a
probably.
year. Yeah, that was a while
Yeah,
ago. But it's
and
like,
like
and I was like, yes, that needs to happen.
they're
How is
just
that?
they
How is
were
it? Yeah, it's like the biggest DeFi protocol in DeFi is liquid stake derivatives. Like
yeah.
I think Lido is like a $6 billion protocol at this point.
Yeah, it's number one on DeFi
Yeah.
Llama, which is also kind of ties a bit into what you were just saying about Alcor. Kind of ties a bit into what I was trying to say before before you came on with, getting exposure to other platforms out there where people look for tokens. Because, like, as you mentioned, even on Wax itself, it would happen. Like, you list something on Alcor, people see it. Like, imagine we actually had Wax exposure on outside of Wax when people go to a platform and discover a new token. Like, that's what we really
Yeah.
need if we want to attract new users. And to answer Rio the Don, do you guys think the DeFi opportunities or raw Wax P price performance will bring more people to it? If you're asking one or the other, price performance probably, just because that's
Yeah.
that's the best marketing you could have, is a price that's going up.
And
But
liquidity depth, I think, helps a lot. Like, I think you see stuff like Solana is like full of meme coin stuff that can easily be done on Wax, and for probably less money to the end user, and probably a quicker, less like full of failed transactions experience. But the difference is there's not hundreds of millions of dollars waiting to shift around these meme coin markets, like already sitting on the Wax chain. That's all sitting in Solana already. I feel like liquidity depth is a big metric that, you know, drives, like, somebody to launch a project on a chain is going to be like, does that chain have the means to pay me what I want to make from this project? And looking at a chain that doesn't have any liquidity is going to be like, well, you know, I'm going to go somewhere where the liquidity exists.
man, I tried to make this point like over and over and over and over on like so many OIG roundtables and just in Telegram channels, and it's like nobody wants to hear me. People keep talking
It's
about like how great the tech is, and it's great,
it's
but it's
great. It would be better than fucking Solana, but like, it's no one's going to launch their meme coin here because there's not $100 million ready to pour into it.
the fact that it's cheaper to build here compared to another chain is only relevant in two situations. One is if you're poor, and we don't
Yeah.
really need to talk too much about that. It's self-explanatory. The
Yeah,
second
because you
one,
can afford it.
the second one is if the money to be made on this chain is the same as the money to be made on the other chain. If I'm a, let's quote unquote, big brand that everybody talks about all the time that we need to get here, I have a bankroll. I'm not broke. Okay. So I
Yeah.
fall into the second category. I have $100,000 to throw away, even if it cost me 100 grand to deploy my project on Base or Solana or Ethereum. And I knew the upside was $10 million. I will spend that $100,000 to build there 1,000 times out of 1,000, because
Yeah.
the fact that it's cheaper to build here is meaningless when the upside is $50.
Yeah, exactly. It has to 100%. Like, that's, I think, more than anything else that will drive like DeFi opportunity is liquidity depth. Like, part of it was also like when, like, even years ago, the Wax, you know, team has their bridge into like the Ethereum mainnet, where you can bridge, you know, wrap Bitcoin, wrapped Ethereum, I think DAI, USDT, USDC, and those all exist. But there's like, even back then they existed, and I tested the bridge with like $100 or something, like when I first tried it out. I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. And then I was like, what do I do with it now that it's here? Like, and then, you know, it's like, well, I even asked some of like the people, I was like, well, where's the, and they're like, oh, we expect kind of like the community to do, well, the community isn't going to put up first money. Like, you have to put a liquidity base. Like, who's going to trust a bridge and bridged assets on a chain where the devs behind that bridge aren't even trusting it enough to put up their own fucking liquidity? And then I guess part of the issue is, well, maybe it's because the liquidity options, where do you put it, will only into a closed source marketplace. Maybe that's part of the reason of like, well, we can't put like $1 million worth of project funding into a closed source contract environment. So that makes sense. But then it's like, okay, well, what should you be making? You know? Like,
Absolutely, man. I don't mean to be like I don't mean to be redundant here and like try to toot my own horn like I'm the greatest thing to ever happen to Wax or whatever, but like, this is everything that I'm trying to start rolling the ball on with WaxFusion. Like, this is the first step for me, because now there are other things that could make sense to have a stable coin somewhere and actually build liquidity for it, like building an open source lending protocol where there's LS Wax and a trusted stable. Now there's a place to actually put assets and gain yield from them with a yield bearing asset that's deposited as collateral or borrowed or whatever. That's
that
just one thing. There are plenty of others that could be built, but like,
it also pours so much more value into the protocol, because then you, like, you know, the yield bearing asset is deposited into a money market, which is lending you out like a stable coin asset, which you're then using to participate in the rest of the DeFi economy. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah, to me,
that's
like
how you
this
grow it. Yeah,
this
definitely.
is the first step. It's not there yet. There are other building blocks that need to come along, but they,
Yeah,
in my opinion, they couldn't have really happened without this first step. So, like, I
yeah.
really want to see where things go over the next 6 to 12 months. I'm hoping to see some other things come up from other people,
Hmm.
experienced people who like have skills and want to open source stuff because I can't do it all myself.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think we're in a much better position now to at least have some hope, at the
Yeah,
least.
it's definitely like the last few years, even though like the price action has been pretty depressing. It's nice to see like the people who are still actively like participating in Wax are definitely like the people who are around now are the core like members of these communities when the shit ever like comes back. You know, like back when the first like NFT craze was happening like 3 years ago and stuff, there was like, you know, those like the people who were like, you know, OGs, the people who had those epic collections already when everything was flying. Like that's basically if there's a resurgence in like NFT stuff, especially in Wax volume, I think the people who are active today are the like foundation of that. And it's a fun community. Like most people are here like care about the space, care about like the user's experience, and care about like calling out shitters. And you know, like it's getting to be a lot less of a place that's just riddled with money grabs. And a big part of that is admittedly there's no fucking money to grab. So don't be under the impression that the money grabs aren't coming back the second the money comes back. Like 100%. Like I mean, we saw that like the second, you know, what was it, like we saw that with Woof token, I would say, like doing well. We saw 1,000 other like meme coins launch. I mean, I launched one too just for shits. We same with like when they had like the PFP kind of like blow up for a second. Literally everybody who had fucked off came back to do their own PFP project too. So I mean, expect them to come back in full force. But then I would say also, if you're part of these communities now, you will be the people in those rooms full of new excited people who are like, hey, by the way, that guy's full of shit. Like that guy was pushing bullshit like last year, or that guy fucked off and burned everybody. And I feel like it's fun to like be today like part of these communities that will like tomorrow be, you know, the watchdogs and looking out for the new people who come in. Because I 100% believe that like most people in the communities that I'm part of will step up and like, you know, help newcomers avoid bullshit, because you know bullshit is on the rise as quickly as price is on the rise.
Absolutely. Yeah, we just need some new blood, but all it takes, like you said, is one initiative. The existing initiatives that we had were, I mean, I know Wolf is expanding out of the chain, but for the most part, it's like a thing happens on this chain, and then the people who have been here before or are still here will pick
Yeah,
up on it and jump on the trend. All we
yeah.
need is one little foothold into another ecosystem, like, and generate some attention there, man. And there's so much potential.
It's crazy to see like the like Ton chain, for example, right, is like the next target for Wolfcoin's bridge. And Ton chain right now is like full of these like tap games, like clicker games, and it's really like participating in that ecosystem is really reminiscent of like Wax in 2021. You know, it's like it's all clicker games. It's mostly bot farmed, you know, clickers that like all have this kind of like, oh, you're earning an in-game token that'll eventually maybe be a crypto asset. And you know, it's all this like hype and hope of like you're making money playing some bullshit nonsense. And it's fun to participate in it coming from having, you know, gone up and down that boom and bust cycle on Wax, and now seeing the exact same thing happening on like other chains that are definitely behind when it comes to the NFT like kind of stuff developing there. So like, you know, when you come from Wax, I feel like you are so, if you've been participating in Wax for the last like few years, you have a battle tested like understanding of NFT like markets at this point. And when you go to these other chains where like those markets are kind of like on the rise, it's interesting to see that the quality of what is on the rise there and the stuff that people are engaging in is like not like it's basically on par with what was happening on Wax like 3 years ago. You know, like very basic like stuff that's very clearly going to like, you know, Ponzi and collapse a lot of the times, but the hype is there. It's just not on Wax at the moment. So it's like you said, you just need to like branching out into those spaces to catch some of that hype is, yeah, like it can happen very quickly, you know, like, but
Just needs something interesting enough to grab people's attention. And for me, feel free to disagree because most people seem to argue with me whenever I bring this up. I
yeah,
love NFTs and I think that they're cool. And like, I'm not trying to crap on anybody who like you have an NFT project, you know? So like,
yeah,
look, I respect it. I just think is when it comes to other chains and like actually generating the hype, nobody cares about like atomic asset standard and whatnot. Like, yeah, some people do, but like in terms of bringing real money and liquidity here, like it's just not going to happen from NFTs, in my opinion, which is why I'm focused on the DeFi side of
yeah,
things. But I think even like I said, again, I know I'm talking about myself, but this is the WaxFusion stream after all.
yeah,
Well, like if we get LS Wax bridge to base and just people even just see the token on Aerodrome, LS Wax, what is that? And then if
yeah,
we're actually on like CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap and they can look it up, go to the site and see like, oh, I can get exposure to this layer one chain and earn like let's say 20%. It's a liquid staking token, you know, like it's one opportunity to start getting some attention. And then, hey, maybe somebody from one of those other chains will come and build one of the things that I'm talking about. They might see it and
right,
be like, I should build a lending platform on this, you know, and maybe we
yeah.
get an influx of devs.
Or
Um,
even like an expansion of an existing like lending platform would be dope. Like there's so many like cross-chain lending things. Like I've been using Radium, I think, for a while. That one's,
Solana, right?
let's
Oh, no, that's
see,
a DEX. What are you talking about?
Radian Capital. It's a
Yeah.
lending layer zero like money market. So it's on, let's see, Base, BNB, Ethereum, and Arbitrum. But that one, like, it'd be sweet to see something like that because, like, well, I mean, the main feature I like about that is I can take a loan, like, I can deposit USDC or ETH or whatever on Base chain, and then take a loan in USDC or ETH or whatever on, and have that loan arrive in my wallet, but on Arbitrum or on BNB chain, and so I can like loan across the blockchain, like different. Like, it's really cool. I mean, for what I do, it's really great because, like, you know, I like to be like, okay, I'm gonna put like I can put liquidity from GMX, like in the Bitcoin GMX pool. I can supply that liquidity to Radian on Arbitrum and then borrow USDC to farm a stablecoin pool on Aerodrome on Base, while I'm in
Yeah.
the like GMX money market as collateral on a different blockchain. Like that kind of stuff is really fucking cool. So
Hey,
having something like that expand to Wax, where then it's like, oh, and now you can, you know, deposit my Wax on the Wax blockchain and use it to take a loan in Ethereum on Binance chain or something. Like
I was
those things are nuts.
I
Like
was just
that's,
talking about this recently. Sorry to interrupt you. It's just
I don't know. That was pretty much it.
um yeah, I agree. It would be great to see wax on those things. And like to me, that is the end goal. That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard because we're not our tech is so much different.
Yeah.
They might overlook it if we were listed if we had support on Infura or QuickNode or any of these other big these are API providers, right?
Yeah.
So these big platforms like the ones you were just talking about, they're querying data from Infura or whatever API provider all day. They can go to Infura's website. They know they trust Infura. They're the source, you know. They
Yeah.
go there, they click on the chain, and they see all the different API methods that they can call and what data, how they request it. For Wax, it's like, yeah, well, you have to run a ship node and you know this node, and you have to have your own API, and so yeah, but you can reach out to one of the block producers. Well, there's also Hyperion. Yeah, all the
Mm-hmm.
endpoints return different data because you know this guy has a partial node and this one has a full node, and he might have missed some blocks here and there, so he probably doesn't have the transaction ID that you're looking for. We need to be like supported on Infura. From my understanding, there's a pretty significant, well, depending on what you view as significant. I mean, to a layer
Yeah.
one chain, it probably shouldn't be considered significant, but it's definitely in the six-figure range or
Yeah.
possibly even up to like low seven. So I don't think that's something the Wax team themselves is really going to prioritize right now.
Yeah.
Without that, that's one barrier. And then on top of that, you're talking about, let's say, a lending platform letting you deposit liquidity positions or or even using a strategy in a DeFi pro. Like let's build a strategy on this exchange, Uniswap. We'll have our liquidity there. It'll earn X amount. That's our strategy with the funds that are deposited.
Yeah.
That's how we give yield to our users. Again, Alcor is closed source, so good luck with that. Like that,
Yeah.
they don't do that at all these big protocols, like even Beefy Finance, um, you go into their Discord to one of the LP tokens that's farmable on their platform.
Yeah.
The project who owns that token, who created it, there's an alerts channel in the platform's Discord, in Beefy's Discord, that will tell you if the project owner has requested a treasury fund withdrawal in X amount of time. And be aware because they might sell some treasury funds in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
You think they're going to deal with a closed source protocol on an obscure chain that doesn't have support on Infura either, or
Yeah.
whatever?
Hell no.
We have so many barriers right now. And to me, it's tough because I can't do these things myself. I have no control over them. So it's like, it's almost pointless to complain about them, but it's like, I really would love to see these things get handled.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like the tech on Wax is great, and especially for NFTs, it's like, I mean, I've done NFTs across like the entire like EVM chains and other, like, it doesn't even fucking begin to compare. Like the experience for collecting and interacting with your NFTs on Wax is unrivaled. Like there's no alternative to it. I'd say maybe Immutable is getting kind of close, with like the Immutable passport being accessible through just an email address, and then like it running pretty much seamlessly. Like you don't have to know shit about blockchain to use Immutable. But then if you do know shit about blockchain and you want to do more advanced things, again, Wax takes the cake. So it's like, I mean, just something as simple as like the Wax NFT token standard being like the atomic asset standard, having like the broadcast sales transaction be permeating across all marketplaces on the blockchain. That alone is like, okay, like, game set match. Like that's not, like, if I list my shit on OpenSea, it's not on Rarible. I have to do that separately on every marketplace. So if you're buying your NFTs on Rarible and I list my shit on OpenSea, you're not seeing that, unless the collection is big enough, and then usually the collection will have like a bot that relists all OpenSea listings to Rarible and stuff. But that's on the collection owners, and it's not free. Broadcasting those transactions isn't cheap.
yeah.
So being able to be like, hey, I want to list this Funko NFT for sale, and I can broadcast that listing potentially in a market, like in an on-chain marketplace that's run and owned by Funko. That listing will still exist on Atomic Hub, which is so fucking cool. Like, or on Nifty Blocks, on NFT Hive, on Chain Champs. Like, it'll exist on any marketplace where you go on Wax.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially almost like I don't want to say DAO because there's only a few parties involved, but it's a protocol, like a chain-owned contract that's supported by everyone. I want to answer a couple questions real quick because I've kind of ignored a few people. Did I know that Alcor was working on Liquid Stake token as well when I started? So as Max can tell you, I reached out to him literally over a year ago. We've been discussing this for a long time.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know anybody was working on anything like it at all when I first started talking about it. We put a hold on it for a while because of a couple things. Power Up hadn't existed yet, so it was like that was part of it. Also, just a skill issue. Like, I'm the first to admit I've grown over time and improved my skills. I think I put some limitations in my head when I first was planning it that maybe didn't exist. They just existed in my brain. So it took me a while to get back to it and finally figure out the right way.
Mm-hmm.
But actually getting back to it, I proposed this to Wax team in, it was either February or March of this year. Been working on it ever since. Ironically, like, a bit of a coincidence, like I'm not gonna, accuse anybody of anything. But after I submitted this to the Wax team, Alcor's token popped up like 3 weeks later, and yeah, like whatever. Again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. It was just a big coincidence, probably. But like one of the dudes who was auditing the contract works for Alcor too, so it was like, I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
we had the idea before anything was announced by them, so I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, and I think you can add that, like, at the end of the day, both products kind of will give you exposure to a similar thing. I would say that the WaxFusion product is just a much better version of LSW, because it has basically the way it's thought out works better. Like the way that it first of all is split into S wax and LS wax. That's, I think, a better way to do it, because it gives the end user the ability to earn wax if they don't want to exposure to some kind of auto compounding. You can literally just stake your wax at WaxFusion and then have S wax in your wallet, which gives you the rights to claim liquid wax back, which that's already, like, you can't do that with LSW on Alcor. And then on top of that, you have the built-in protocol owned liquidity, which maybe Alcor does, but it's not clear from their documentation. And then you also have built-in incentives that actually get people to use the liquid stake token, which Alcor just kind of like deployed this thing and then just let it sit there, which, I mean, it's what it is, but I don't know. Personally, I think that the LS Wax token was like a much better version of that concept, like a better execution of it. And I think it has a potential for a higher revenue than LS Wax, because it has different like avenues to generate that revenue, and it uses a protocol owned liquidity to kind of lay down a base, liquidity generating, reward generating kind of like base. So then there's always potentially incentives for people to add liquidity to participate in the actual DeFi side of this, which is what generates the fees in the first place, and so kind of self-serves itself and creates a bit of that like flywheel that everyone's chasing.
Yeah, different products.
Yeah,
Alcors is a lot simpler to understand. As I've mentioned, like
that's
I
good.
don't view them as a competitor at all. I think they complement each other, and I'm happy they launched
Same.
it. To be honest, like it's not useless, or else they wouldn't have gotten to whatever it is. What is there, like 8 million wax in NTVL there or something?
Yeah. Was it
So
8 million I thought it was like 7 or 6,
might be.
but
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'll check.
Am I actually in touch with wax devs, or you try
Six
to reach them?
6.2 million.
Or do I try to reach them and they ghost me? Fenris, do you mean developers on the Wax blockchain, or are you talking about the Wax Teams devs? But I can answer both. I'm in a lot of the dev channels. I see people kind of ask questions all the time, and I try to help. But I mean, I can't guide people to like teach them how to come up with an idea and build it or whatnot. As far as Wax Teams devs, yeah, I'm in a private Slack channel with them. With I don't know how large the Wax team is, but I'm with like I think 11 or 12 members of the Wax team in there. I talk to them anytime I have a question. They answer me the same day for the most part. Yeah, so they're reachable for me.
Nice. Let's see. Tech is great. Problem is Wax has a scam stigma. I want to say something about that. I feel like the reason that scams are so prevalent on Wax, first of all, is that you're on Wax, so you see that a lot more. But I think it's a testament to how easy it is to deploy stuff on Wax. Like the reason for it's cheap and it's easy, and therefore you're gonna get all sorts of you attract all sorts of kind of types. But when something's so cheap and so easy, then it's cheap and easy for scammers as well. I will say though that scams exist everywhere. You have to keep your wits about you. Like you can be scammed out of your credit card money, out of your bank account money, out of your crypto money, in the same way across the board. It's just that a lot of the more sophisticated scams are more expensive to pull off, and you see them less often. And so I feel like Wax, you end up getting a lot of low effort scams because it's so fucking low effort to deploy scams. So ultimately, I view that as a testament to the blockchain itself. It's like, oh well, Wax is full of scams because it's so fucking easy to use and so cheap to like do this stuff, which is ultimately a positive. But yeah, I mean, there's also the side of it of like you can't expect new users to be experts at navigating a scam filled space, and then new users also will encounter a scam, be scammed, and quit. And I know a lot of people from back in 2021, back when like the hype was huge and like everything you bought exploded 10x or whatever. A lot of those people like big into NFT collecting, really really active in these communities. And then when they got rug pulled or fucked over by like some scammer, um, that was enough to ruin their taste on Web3 entirely. And a lot of those people fucked off and never came back. And that is a real risk of like, yes, scams exist everywhere, but we do need to kind of like take an effort to like make sure they're not the first thing that newcomers run into, because the second a newcomer runs into a scam, you potentially lose them forever. But yeah, it's Lewis is saying too, cheap chain, good tech. It's why there's so many bot farms too. It's because it's doable. You can do it, and you can do it with very little resources, and so you see a lot of people doing it.
But in cases like Alcor with the arbitrage, like we were mentioning before, again, there's a distinction between what's a good bot and a bad bot. And most of the time, the bad bots, that's a development issue in terms of the project itself, like Alien World's botting issue or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's a problem, the game's designed wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there are cases where bots are great, like Alcor's arbitrage stuff, helping keep the prices to where they should be, generating fees for everybody and volume for everybody. I want to circle back to Love Handle's question in a second because I have a thought on that, but I want to answer include no real quick. Is there a standard API schema that chains follow? I'm sure you've probably looked at Infura's documentation before, so me telling you to go there is probably pointless. But if you do go there, you'll notice that most of them are pretty much the same, but certain chains that are a little bit different have their own kind of section there. I think Base and Optimism are slightly different, so they get their own little portion of the documentation. But overall, I think it's a pretty similar kind of schema that they all use. Just some of them taking maybe different parameters and whatnot. But I don't even think it's the schema itself that's our problem in terms of something like Infura. It's even if we tell them what the schema is, it's like they can't trust us to give them the right data. I would say they probably want their own stuff that they can run. So like that's the issue, is like getting them on board in the first place, because they're not going to vouch for us and list us on their site and be like, yeah, those BPs are good guys. I'm sure everything's legit.
Yeah.
Love handles, the tech is great. Problem, Wax got a scan to take it. Yeah, so like Max was saying, it's very vocal in our community. And like I was saying before, when I was going over DeFi Llama and talking about how we need more exposure in other places because we're non-existent on, even as Rio the Don said, Dex Screener, which is another one. We're not supported on any of these places. So yeah, there's a scam stigma in our community, but we don't exist elsewhere. Like no one's thinking about Wax on Base and saying, "Oh yeah, I know that scam chain." They're just like, "Wax, what's that? I never heard of it."
Yeah.
Well, EOS, I'm sure like most people probably know what EOS is, and there's definitely a scam stigma there. So try to avoid mentioning EOS as much as possible when I tell people about Wax.
Yeah, it's an EOSIO fork. That's enough to get people like, no, I'm out.
Now it's Antelope. They changed the name, so it's better. It's
nice.
You just say, it's an Antelope chain.
Isn't Antelope making it possible to deploy EVM script like contracts directly on Wax?
Man, I don't know what's going on with Antelope. Include No probably knows more than me on that. There's some, I don't even know. I think they're trying to gate things now behind a paid license, an expensive one, and I don't know if Wax is going to be part of that, or if we're going to have to like wait longer for updates than other people. I don't want to get too into that because that's what the OIG roundtables are about, and sometimes they get pretty repetitive. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I see. Yeah, I heard about it like also over a year ago at this point, that it'd be possible to like deploy, like straight up Uniswap or something, which seems exciting, especially because it is like, there is, part of dev work is that it takes time, and it requires, like audits and battle testing to gain trust. And so being able to deploy existing audited contracts from existing, established DeFi protocols, it would be pretty quick way to gain trust very fast. But
I'd have to see what that looks like. I'm not sure if I've heard anything like that. I mean, I know Wax was talking about building an EVM layer on top of like,
Yeah.
like optimism built on Ethereum type of thing.
Oh, I see. So it'd be like its own layer two, like the.
Yeah, which is
I
I
don't
mean,
hate that
I
either.
love the idea of being EVM compatible, but that brings its own questions too. Like,
Yeah.
are the layer one projects important anymore? Because they can't be supported. Like, are you just going to give up on them and then go to Infura and be like, well, here's our layer two. Oh, and here's our biggest DEX, some new guy that came along. Like who
Yeah.
cares about Alcor? They're not on there. We don't know them. Don't
Right.
worry about it. So
It's like that's layer one stuff.
yeah, and how would the OIG want to incentivize certain things? Like, is the layer two product more important? Like,
That's
you
tricky.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want to get out of Wax. I just like to see a bridge from Wax layer one to base that's more
Yes.
accessible to really me. Like, I just want LS Wax bridge. That's my main thing right now.
Yeah. The Wolf Bridge is very, I have to say, very accessible. Like the liquidity on Wax and like base is not crazy deep, but Solana pretty fucking deep. Like it's pretty impressively accessible. And I've been able to move, out of Wax and into Wax using the Wolf Bridge. And it's fast and cheap, and I'm pretty excited about it.
I think I think not at all. I think right now it seems like it is, but that's because no one's built anything good here. Like, there's
Yeah.
either platforms that can be built to make use of the existing stables, or something more unique. Yeah, I don't want to give away too many ideas here. I've
Yeah.
discussed some stuff with Max, but there are ways to build a good stable coin.
Yeah. And a native stablecoin is important. So when you're saying the EOS USDT token on Wax, so as you already put it in your question, you're aware that token isn't natively issued on Wax. It actually exists on EOS, and then it's bridged over to Wax through the
See,
IBC
yeah,
bridge. So Alcor bridges it, and then Alcor is the party that's issuing the secondary, like the Wax token on. I'm sorry, the USDT token on Wax. And they're counterpartying that with EOS based USDT. Yeah, there you go. Lucas was saying that they're working on that, and the reason for it is, and it's probably what you heard, Rio, is that Tether Foundation, the issuing authority behind USDT token on like native USDT token on any blockchain, has said that they are unwinding support for EOS, and I think one other chain like Algorand or something. Where they currently have native USDT token, and no longer will they be issuing new USDT tokens on those chains. And after 1 year, they will no longer be redeeming those tokens for cash either. So we have about a year and like 6 to 9 months or so left of USDT on Wax and EOS being actually pegged to dollars. After that, we'll see. But if you look up the news directly from the Tether Foundation, they've put out basically an announcement saying that they are unwinding support for EOS Tether, and so EOS Tether being the counterpart to Wax Tether, that absolutely will affect us. And like Lewis is saying, the people involved with all this stuff are aware of it and are working on solutions. But that's probably what you heard about Tether on the Wax ecosystem, that the support might be getting removed. Yes, that's true. And the support is being removed by the Tether Foundation for actual native Tether on EOS chain.
So Include No says that EOS was paying to have USDT there, but they stopped paying. Typical EOS stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd assume part of that's probably also because of the layer two focus now. They have their EVM, and they probably have. I haven't played with it because I don't really care for EOS much.
Yeah.
Sorry to the EOS natives here, but yeah, basically, I'm sure they probably have stables that are bridged from other popular layer twos or EVM chains, and they don't really
Yeah.
they don't care about the layer one USDT so much anymore.
Which personally, again, like we mentioned, bridge security issues and risks with bridges creating honeypots for potentially losing your backed assets to those. I like native stable coins, like the majority of my stablecoin liquidity that's especially on layer 2 chains is in native stablecoins, not in bridge stablecoins. And a big part of that is because I'm, fool me twice. I've already gotten fucked by a bridge exploit, and I won't do that again. So despite the fact that a lot of like existing bridges are very secure and I don't think you're at risk holding those tokens, I am very uninterested in bridge assets unless there's, unless it's like a short-term thing. I'm not trying to like hold on to a bridged version of a stable coin in like a money market contract for months and months at a time. Not anymore.
Maybe you see like 2,000% APR on some like safe ETH USDC pair somewhere. Maybe you'll bridge for like a week.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah, it's the bridges should be like, in my opinion, bridges are similar to like centralized exchanges where the idea is to use those assets while you're transacting with them, not to use them as like a store of value asset or like long-term holding asset. Same goes for wrap Bitcoin. Hold Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's its own chain. Like if you're gonna hold it for years, hold it on the mainnet.
absolutely, you're always trusting a third party, even if they're multi-sig and they have oracles and all this crazy
Yeah.
design system where it's all super safe. Like,
There
you know,
was a protocol on the Harmony blockchain that like saved me, and I made back a decent amount of what I lost. But what they did, it was a really dumb like time Wonderland style like fork, because that was big at the time. If you remember the whole what was that called, HOM or whatever, like. Yeah, either way, it's like the rebase tokens where it's like, they grow. And anyway, what this fucking protocol was like, you could mint these currencies with, like wrapped bridged assets like bridged USDC, bridged DAI, bridged ETH. And then what the protocol was doing was pulling those bridge assets and actually holding them in the protocol treasury on mainnet. And when the bridge was hacked, basically all the exploited like routes, all the routes off that bridge, off that chain were pretty much fucked. And I had read all the like documentation. I understood that the backing of this WAGMI token was mainnet held and not wrapped assets. And so on the day of the exploit, whatever I had left, I just bought, like I minted a bunch of those tokens. And then, they stopped that too within like an hour or so of the exploit. But what ended up happening is they unwinded the project because the chain basically died in the wake of the bridge hack. But they paid out the treasury to all of the people holding those tokens. And because the treasury was backed in mainnet assets and not bridged assets, it was incredible. I like saved my ass. And then it ended up paying me out on like Avalanche blockchain, which was weird because I don't know why they decided to do it on AVAX, but I had to source some Avalanche. But it was like, yeah, it worked. And they had a whole year where people were claiming like whatever they want. And then after a year on Twitter recently, the dev for that project was like, hey, there's still like $2 million in unclaimed rewards. And I'm not like continuing this project. It's over. So now that it's been 12 months of everybody who had a claim, anyone who already claimed can claim again. So I claimed a year after, I claimed again. I claimed like another like $900 after getting like $3,000 or $4,000 out of that. It was crazy.
man, that's pretty crazy that they can just be like, yeah, you have a year. I mean, I know people do that all the time with like token migrations.
Wax did that shit with the initial Wax launch. Remember, like you bought that on like Ethereum, and then eventually the Wax mainnet launched and Wax P token, and they had a 1-year migration window, and people missed it. And then there's a bunch of people who are like, hey, I still have these Wax launch tokens. Like, how do I get them over to Wax P on mainnet? And it's like, you don't anymore. The bridge ended. Like you should have been paying attention.
True. And, I mean, you do have to monitor your stuff.
Yeah. Right? If you're going to invest in something and then like, let it on autopilot, hold Bitcoin on mainnet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's don't buy into an IPO of a chain that's like not even existing yet and, is going to have a migration into mainnet. Or if you do that, can pay attention. Like, I think they did reopen it for use. I think so. Yeah. But I used to see a lot of people commenting about that, being like very upset and feeling like they got scammed because they bought Wax and then, staked it and then forgot about it. And then years later, we're like, oh, oops, I missed the window to migrate it. And personally, I kind of think any migration window should be open indefinitely, especially if it's not something that was planned at the launch when people bought into something. Like if you're having to introduce a migration, that needs to be like not time sensitive. But
I think I could agree on that.
That's just me though.
Is USDC on Alcor backed by anything? Include no, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty positive that's the native, well, not native here, but it's the bridged USDC from Ethereum.
If
I,
the ticker is Wax USDC, like all
yeah,
one word, that's
yeah, it's
that's the bridged one.
at ETH.token would be the
Yes,
contract. So yeah, I'm pretty
it,
sure that is
it's backed.
actual bridged USDC.
It's USDC on ETH mainnet. So there's an ETH mainnet wallet. If you look in the bridge contracts, you can actually see what the ETH mainnet wallet is. And last time I checked, there was $1 million in USDC on that, and there was $1 million in USDT and in DAI. So they had like significant like liquidity available. It's just nobody uses it.
I think with fees getting, relatively lower on Ethereum now, like to the point where I could withdraw ETH from or even an ERC20 token from an exchange and only pay like $2 in fees sometimes. I think
Yeah,
it is getting to the point where if a use case does open up, like I could see some liquidity coming here for stables.
yeah.
There
The
just is
big
no reason.
the big issue with that bridge though is that they charge a percentage for moving through the bridge, which
Is it
is
how much
for
is the percentage?
last time it was 1%, which is insane, like way
That's
too
great.
much.
I
Like if
use
I'm moving,
Rhino, yeah, and I'll pay like
yeah,
$5 on $10,000 or something like
you're
that.
literally better off swapping into like Wax on Uniswap and then bridging the Wax over than you are bridging the Ether or the USDC over. But then it's like bridging the Wax over, you can't swap into USDC on the Wax side because there's no fucking liquidity. So, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Is it safe to assume it would replace USDT if it will get removed? Well, yeah, both options already exist. It seems like maybe people prioritize USDT, but I personally like USDC more for the most part.
Same. Yeah.
So, yeah, I would like to see actually more around USDC, especially if I keep talking about how base is the new thing. Like
Yeah.
they're getting so much adoption for USDC there. They have it native now,
Yep.
if I remember correctly. So everything you see on base, which is like one of the most popular chains right now, it's all paired against USDC.
Yeah. And
So
USDC is also they do quarterly what is it called? Transparency reports because the backing for USDC is held by BlackRock. Last report they showed it was like 40% of it was in 6-month treasury notes and like 30 something percent was in like 2 or 3-month treasury notes. So like all the money is super liquid. And then it's held by BlackRock, but it's managed by BlackRock and owned by Circle. And Circle owns or is owned by Coinbase, which trades on the New York Stock Exchange and therefore is regulated very heavily. Like stuff that trades on the stock exchange isn't doing some fly-by-night bullshit, which something like USDT might be doing. And there's definitely people claiming that, there's insolvency concerns around USDT because of, the potential of, that closed organization who issues it, not being transparent. And a part of the non-transparency there is that no auditor is willing to like play the way that Tether wants them to audit them. They're like, oh, we'll let you audit us if you do this, this, and this. And most auditing firms are like, we're not going to stake our reputation to audit you in that way. So even though they've tried to get audited, they haven't been audited in a way that satisfies regulatory authorities in the United States, I would say. I mean, you're not even allowed to trade USDT in New York State. Like Gemini Exchange doesn't list it because they're not allowed to, because the New York currency commission says no, and they say no because they do a lot to protect consumers in New York, despite the reputation Wall Street has as being a bunch of criminals. They're
so
very
happy.
heavily regulated criminals.
I'm so happy to be a Florida resident now. I grew up in New York, so man, I had so many problems trying to sign up to
Oh yeah.
exchanges and anything I wanted to get involved in. It was like, yeah, you can use us in the United States, no problem. The following states are not accepted: New York. And then,
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything. It was the worst.
Yeah.
And the taxes there are crazy. I have no state income tax here or state capital gains tax.
Oh, nice.
So the business structure is a lot nicer.
Yeah. It's interesting because like I feel like when something's headquartered in New York, I think that to me, it's especially in a financial context, that gives it a lot of credibility. Like it's not easy to operate especially a Web3 business out of New York. So you see stuff like Uniswap is headquartered there. that's nuts.
Well, that I would agree on, but being a resident using those places,
Yeah,
man,
that's
it's
true.
tough.
It's also why Uniswap, that's why the SEC is going after Uniswap. They're in the SEC's jurisdiction. It's like, why wouldn't the SEC go after more obvious bullshit like, like Solana projects or like these other things that are like very clearly breaking those rules? Well, it's because they're not headquartered in New York.
Yeah, well,
Like,
plus they want
yeah.
to, what do they say? Cut off the head of the snake or whatever. What I don't know. I'm bad
They've
with words.
changed their tune a little bit. I think they realize they can't shut it down.
Yeah.
Also, the whole thing of like what Uniswap Labs does is like publish open source code. What's the rule they're breaking?
Yeah, well, ask the Tornado Cash guy.
Okay, that's actually a pretty shitty precedent to set, because I kind of disagreed with that. It's like,
So did I.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I feel like, yeah, creating something that facilitates something else isn't the same as doing the actual like activity. But I don't know. It's definitely a complicated issue, because it is like, I don't know. I don't like that whole, if you have nothing to hide, then it's okay for us to like ask to see your records, which is like, it's not, that's not what privacy is. Like, privacy is my right. It's not that I'm hiding something. It's that I don't want you to see it, period.
It's like, if you have nothing to hide, then why shouldn't I watch you through your camera? Well, while you're taking a shower or whatever.
Which is like, because I have a right to privacy. That's it. Like, you should, like, if you have nothing to hide, like, I don't, but I get to, is the thing. Like, yeah, I don't have to, I get to. And that's, I think, the thing that, like, especially in finance, again, it's so strange to me that like, it's like normalized in society to like, have a list of what people's net worth is. Like, that's pretty private information, and kind of insane to me that it's like, hey, here's what the richest people have in net worth. I'd be like, get me off this fucking list.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Hey, are you looking to rob somebody today who's
Yeah.
rich and do physical harm to them? Here's a list of the people who would be your best targets.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck is this? Or like, when someone takes a job, like in I work a lot in film, and it's like, it's always like everybody's business how much they got paid for that movie. And it's just like, that's weird. I feel like, I don't know, if I got a contract worth like $10 million or something, I'd be like, part of the contract is you don't get to tell people what you paid me. Like, I don't know. I don't want, like, I don't like that idea of like, I mean, I do understand that transparency is like a key aspect of like keeping people honest. But when transparency isn't enacted across the board, then I have a problem with it. Like, hey, if you're not going to show me where like the super PAC that like has hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on like political lobbies, if you don't show me where they're spending their money, why the fuck should I show you where I spend mine? Like, what I do with my money isn't affecting global politics. So I feel like if this thing isn't transparent, then why should this other thing be? And it does feel like a very like heavy double standard all the time, where people are like, oh yeah, like, we need transparency and accountability, and so the person who wrote the Tornado Cash code is going to jail, but the person who manages the like Citizens United Super PAC is going to Washington D.C. to court some politicians.
rules for thee and not for me.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like, I don't know, crypto is a great like environment to like level the playing field, which is what I really like about it too, because it's like, what I can do with my money, one, is the same thing that you can do with your money, and the same thing that like the biggest banker in the world can do with their money. And two, no matter how much money I have to do what I'm doing, it does not afford me the ability to influence what you can do with your money. And that, I think, is a huge like distinction between like DeFi and centralized finance. Like, in centralized finance, if you have more money than someone, you can also limit that person's access to the system. You can be an accredited investor and buy into IPOs that the average person can't. And in crypto, that's just not the case. Like, I can do insanely sophisticated shit with $20 that just isn't possible to do unless you have like day trade minimums met on your broker account or whatever. And so like, I don't know, personally, I'm like, I understand there is like gray areas, and definitely crypto has, you know, the potential to be used for like evil, and if you want to put it that way, but so does cash. And at the end of the day, I feel like transparency is what you get with crypto. And so something like Tornado Cash should be more like, okay, using it is not allowed. You can sanction coins or, you know, stuff like that that come through there. But the guy who deployed the code for it, all they've done is create a document and like deploy it onto a public network, like create a piece of software. Like that can't be criminalized. That's a dangerous thing to criminalize. Like that feels like it should be part of free speech, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
I would
We'll
agree.
see. We'll see how it plays out.
In terms of the accredited investor thing, that's been one of my biggest selling points in terms of like what the value prop is for DeFi in general. Like I think a lot of people hear the term DeFi and they don't really know what it is. Like
Yeah.
people on Wax, even sometimes they'll be like, you know, DeFi is not important, but like they use Wax on Edge every day or whatever. It's like,
Yeah, it's DeFi.
yeah, exactly. Like you live in a world where if you're not already making what is it, $200,000 a year and a net worth of $1 million or
1
something
million,
like
yeah,
that,
net worth. Yeah.
yeah, if you don't do that, sorry, but you're not allowed to make money off this stock. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
for rich people. Get out of here.
And it's like the whole concept behind it is like to protect investors, which is like from what, making money? Because basically like what they're doing is like now all the rich people or the accredited investors can scoop up the opportunities before they hit the plebe market, and by the time they've made their money they can sell the scraps to everyone else.
Yeah, who then are now allowed to buy them.
Yeah,
now that the other people
fucked.
bought them for lower.
Something I also tell people who don't like understand the value of who do participate in regular finance is the key to this one, but who don't really think DeFi has any value. The first thing that usually gets people's attention is, hey, when I trade on DeFi platforms, I'm not limited to first in, first out order processing. Like that's huge. Like I can open a short sell, I can open another short sell, and I can open another short sell. And now when the market rebounds and the last two that are in profit, like I can close those two and leave the one I opened first can stay open. So I can make trades in whatever order is most profitable to me. Whereas the average financial like broker is going to first in, first out order process your transactions, which is, okay, I can go short, I can average down 2 more times, and then if my market rebounds, but not to higher than my first like entry, well, that's the first one I can close. I can't close the most recent one. I have to close first in, first out. And so that alone is a huge, huge benefit to traders. So even if you just buy and sell assets, not being limited to first in, first out order processing is massive. That and the fact that there is no order flow, like being sold off, like the way it works in regular stock trading is bullshit in general. Like if you're using Robinhood, you're not broadcasting orders to a market, you're selling orders to a market maker who packages them and resells them to a hedge fund. So they like basically are trading on top of your orders. So there's no winning, you know. Like, yeah, I mean, like you're not even like like at least on crypto, when I broadcast a transaction from my wallet on Uniswap or create like a limit order using 1inch or something, like that exists on a public market. When I make an order on Robinhood, I'm just selling it to Robinhood to package and sell to Citadel, you know, which then Citadel will maybe like match those orders between other orders they bought, and then like they'll take the profit of the spread, which is bullshit. Like the fuck, like how am I supposed to make money as a retail trader when the game isn't level, like the playing field isn't level? And I don't know. It's very frustrating. And so that's always something I feel like is so easy to sell DeFi to people who do like centralized finance stuff, in the sense of like, oh yeah, no order flow, no first in, first out order processing. Enough said. Like that's a huge selling point.
That first in, first out thing is crazy. I didn't even know that. So it's like
huge.
if you buy $1,000 worth of, like, let's say something at $1 and then it crashes to 50 cents, and you buy $100,000 worth and it recovers to 99 cents. Like, it's probably a bad example because, like, I guess you could sell it all and you take a little bit of a loss on the first one, but like realistic, like you can't just sell the $100,000 worth that you bought at 50 cents for almost a 2x.
Yeah,
Like,
you're realizing the loss first, which is king idiotic. So it's like, I mean, there's ways to like also trade in that way where like, to loss farm your tax commitments, but it's also like much easier in crypto to do that because you are in control of what order your transactions are executing in. So you decide what's the most profitable, not the broker. And that alone gives you a huge edge, like a huge edge, which, yeah, I feel like it's an easy sell.
yeah, and there's
Like,
so many things that don't even exist yet that we don't know are
yeah.
going to exist, and they're going to change the game too. It's like every year there's a new narrative.
Yeah, I mean, Pendle was a huge step forward in DeFi. If you ever fuck with that, where you can now like sell off your future potential earnings. Like I can take liquid staked wax as an example, since we're on wax, right? I could take my liquid staked wax, I could deposit it in Pendle, and then take a loan against the APR that I am expected to earn over the next 12 months, which is awesome because that means I can get the APR I'm going to earn, use it to buy shit now, and then over time, the APR that I'm actually earning on my collateral is just paying down my loan. Which, I mean, Pendle became huge, and all it is a market that lets you sell future revenue from yield bearing positions such as liquidity farms or staking pools. Fantastic. That didn't exist, like a few years ago.
That's pretty insane, man. I thought about doing something like that on the Waxtail NFT farms a while back, but like there's so much.
Oh yeah,
I'm not even like really that focused on NFTs anymore.
Yeah,
I
I feel like
yeah,
the market is with you on that.
I would agree, which is why I've shifted focus because I think if I'm being completely honest here, like which maybe I shouldn't say as a block producer and whatnot who represents the chain, but like I'd say there was probably a period of time where I was like, man, I don't know where any of this is going, and like
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get paid when I'm getting paid every month and
Yeah,
not screw it up and ride it out as long as I can because like I don't see this going anywhere. Like I start to feel pretty down about it, and I've recently like with the launch of Fusion and how it's going so far and all the ideas that I have, like I'm genuinely like I hold LS wax in my wallet. Like I'm not
yeah,
even cashing out my wax that I get paid. Some of it I am because I have to pay bills, but
right.
I'm like actually trying to like reach out and expand the growth of the chain, and like it feels good to feel that way again.
Yeah. The ROI opportunities also just for you like yield farming on Alcor. Sure, it's a lot of like shit coins, but look at their performance relative to base currency. Like look at their performance relative to Wax. They're mostly doing okay and paying 100% APR. So it's like, I don't know, in recent times, like I've been really enjoying, like I actually moved a few $100 back over from base recently to like pull into like one of the wolf farms just because it's like, hey, there's like stuff to do here, and a lot of it comes from, hey, there's now liquid stake wax assets and people are building new farms and it's exciting.
Yeah, and this is iteration one of like what's happening with it. Who knows what the next kind of
Yeah,
trend will be. Somebody's going to build something on top of it, even if it's me. I might,
yeah,
I'm definitely going to build on top of it. I'm just saying, like, hopefully someone else does, and it'll be just like that Wax Apes thing or
yeah.
whatever else it was we talked about, and then a
I
bunch
feel
of
like
other people.
something that could be fun to do, that I don't know how difficult it would be, but to let how it's impossible for anybody other than the token creators to incentivize liquidity pools.
Yes.
If there was like an option or a section on the WaxFusion of like, hey, do you
Yep.
want to incentivize any pair that's paired with LS? So it's like, hey, I have this neon LSW pool. Can I just like here's the wallet I send these funds to, and then you add them to the pool, so,
Yeah.
so that
No, man.
anyone
Like
can add rewards to any LS Wax pool. That I would feel like would be kind of cool.
you missed the first part of the stream because I literally was talking about this. I
Oh,
actually I submitted an issue on GitHub to talk about why I want to do this, and I actually wrote the code already. I just have to write some unit tests for it and make sure everything functions right. But
yeah,
currently, I have it set up where that is the case, but it's going to be from like approved wallets like me.
yeah,
I think like I have to run this by the Wax team, but really, like, I don't see what the risk would be in terms of allowing anybody to just make that deposit, because all it's gonna do is receive LS Wax
And
and
then reset
incentivize.
extend
Yeah,
the yeah.
like, I don't really see any way that it could be used to somehow exploit anything or, like, harm the
Right.
protocol,
Especially if you limit it to like the reward incentive has to be LS Wax. So that's
yeah,
not like, because I wouldn't want to see like a pool that's suddenly getting all these shit coins spammed to it. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if anyone can just add LS Wax, that seems like a fun way for also like communities who maybe there's a whale in like one of these communities who isn't the owner of the contract but has like an extra 1,000 wax. They're like, I'm gonna
yeah.
incentivize it
Like
just because.
TLM, for example, that's,
Yeah,
that one's
yeah,
not built into our ecosystem fund, it's not there, but, like, and honestly, it's already spread kinda. There's not that much rewards to go out, so I don't wanna keep adding more pools,
right,
but
yeah,
I was really thinking out of my own pocket, like TLM, Marsha even maybe,
right,
um, like Wax U or, Woofy, like, these would be all pools that would be fantastic to have paired against LS Wax with some incentives,
yeah.
because they're the biggest ones in the ecosystem, and if those
I
had incentives on them.
I love that, and I do that with
Yeah,
my own. Like on Aerodrome, I'll just add incentives to the bribes for pools that I like. Like I know when Farax Finance launched on base and they added like FXS and like other like Farax tokens. I dropped some like what was it, AERO from my own, like I claimed my AERO rewards that week and I just bribed one of the stablecoin pools I was in. Like I'm not part of the team, but that's
yeah.
fun. That's like, and if anyone can do that kind of stuff, I think that just like is a useful, I think, like way to kind of like generate more reward, like potentially reward like LP pressure reward.
Well,
Um,
especially when
that
it's,
doesn't come
especially
from the protocol.
yeah, especially, like, again, circling it back to talk about myself again, but, like, especially when it's a protocol like WaxFusion that's literally designed to, like, as it grows and the TVL grows, it's meant to benefit everybody. The
Yeah,
pool you incentivize, the holders of that token, like Alcor itself for having liquidity there, all the people arbitraging stuff, the people holding LS Wax, like, somebody doing that to incentivize a pool would really just be feeding themselves. Because if they were in a project that, like, needed a little bit of a boost to grow, like,
yeah,
put some incentives on that pair, like, it would
yeah.
just designed to help everybody.
And it makes sense too to like, because it's like the way it's set up now, it's like, well, only the project can incentivize its own stuff and only the protocol like owned liquidity stuff can be used to do that. But if it's like anyone can do it, you know, it becomes more like almost like that bribe market again, which like if you look at where like, you know, a lot of those LPs out there, yeah, sure, most of the bribes come from like the DAOs that, you know, represent ownership of those, but not all of them. Like there's definitely like big players in like the LP farms who will bribe the pools that they're in because, you know, especially for tokens like, yeah, I don't know, like that you create yourself. Sure, you can create your farm, but if you're like, you know, there's tokens out there that I own like 20 or 30 or sometimes 40% of the total liquidity. That's like, well, I don't know, if I rewarded this pool, I would get back 40% of all the rewards anyway. So it's like, yeah, why not? Like maybe I can reward it and see if I can like cause some like short-term like volatility, which makes me money because I'm in the pool.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And
yeah.
then plus maybe the project itself will get some exposure. It's the whole point of Aerodrome, for
Yeah.
example. Like, the
Yeah,
whole point,
exactly.
you list there because people will see it and they will
Yeah.
see the 300% APR or whatever it is on a pool and be like, what is this token? You know how many tokens I've looked up, and I'm sure you have too, just
Yeah.
because I saw them on Aerodrome with an APR. I was like,
And
oh man, Ghost, what's Ghost? Or
or huge bribes too. I'll see people bribing like a $500,000. I'm like, who is this? But yeah.
do we feel that backed Wax NFTs flopped? I think they have a cool use case. There's a lot of ways you could do fun stuff with them. I mean, I built that other contract that backs
Yeah.
NFTs with any token, but like I said, I don't think that doing anything with NFTs, in my opinion, right now is like going to help Wax succeed. Or to put it a better way, um, if you think that Wax has not had a lot of success so far, I
Yeah.
don't think the reason for it is that our NFT stuff is not good enough yet.
That I agree with that for
That
sure.
would be a better way to put it.
I think the wax backing NFTs is really fucking cool, but I will also like say it is overwhelmingly useful for more nefarious reasons than it is for like genuine things. Like there are genuine things that are really cool to use it for, but like overwhelmingly the average person would use backing NFTs to maybe avoid like the market fees or avoid paying collection fees. So like I guess I will explain. So if you haven't thought of doing this already, maybe don't, because it is you're avoiding like paying the collection owners the fees, but I mean maybe do because you need to save money and whatever. But what people will do is like, I used to do this a lot for like Our Planet, for example, where there was
Me
like
too.
where you have like lands or rigs, and they sell for like thousands of wax, right? And then the Our Planet what is it, market fee was like 6% or something maybe. So what you would do is like, someone wants to buy my mining rig, for example, for like 3,000 wax. That's what it sells on the secondary market for. If I list it for 3,000 wax, it will sell, but I will end up getting 2,000 like 800 whatever wax, you know, because the fees from the collection, the tokenomics fee, all that stuff. So instead, what we'll do is I'll meet the guy who wants it like in a Discord chat and stuff, and I'll be like, okay, here's a bullshit NFT. I'm gonna back, you know, you're gonna back or whatever, you back this NFT with 3,000 wax, and then make me a trade offer for my 3,000 wax value NFT. We'll trade NFTs. I'll burn your NFT, and then we can do a trustless trade without involving tokenomic fees, but with basically trading wax for an NFT. And that, and then the other option is obviously the very obvious vector for money laundering, where you could back an NFT, then buy it off the market and burn it, and, you know, acquire the value of the backing legitimately. Which, I mean, you know, good luck explaining that if they actually look into it. But there that is.
If Atomic Hub really wanted to, like, if they were concerned about it, or Atomic Assets, I should say, whoever manages the contract updates, they really could just cycle through the tokens that are backed into an NFT and take the fee out of each one when there's a trade offer that's executed.
Oh, I see.
If
like, that'd be fun. Yeah, if they
that.
added it to, because you could like add it to the backing then for the trades, where it's like a backing requires a fee.
Yeah, they could just, well, not even backing, like, I guess at the
or
backing
like transfer the backing, I guess would.
Yeah, maybe like specifically a trade offer that you execute through their platform. It's like,
but then I guess, no, that's true. It would be harder. Then it would become a trusted exchange if you're just sending it. So at that point, you might as well just send wax.
Exactly.
So, So that's a good, there's definitely ways around it, but I feel like I like the concept of doing it. I just don't think any project has really done, other than honestly, again, like I think the Wojak NFTs have that really cool thing where like they're being backed by WaxDAO tokens, and then over time potentially the backing increases. So the longer you hold it, that is a cool concept. But very few fucking people do anything with the backing other than use it to avoid trading or use it to avoid market fees. So I don't know if I would call it a success, but I do like that it exists.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty useful and fun. I just I'm less thinking about the fun stuff on the chain right now, and more like I have to act as like what I am basically, which is a representative of the chain, and somebody who needs to be responsible for helping to grow it. So to me, that's just not like adding more NFT features right now. I know other people are working on stuff like that. There's a lot of discussions around the Atomic Asset standard right now, which is you know, I'm not against it. I don't think it's like so crucial as something like, you know, growing outside of wax right now. But that's why we have so many different BPs, because we're allowed to have different opinions, and some of us could take different initiatives than the others. So
it would be nice to see also just like more stablecoin liquidity on wax, just so that NFT markets can list in stablecoin. Like if you look at what Funko has done recently, like making their own kind of like market now, where, you know, I think that's even separate from the wax mainnet now at this point too. So it's like, but they're using USDC and USDT overwhelmingly, and I think users, especially new users and people who aren't like savvy to crypto, aren't necessarily interested in trading in some token currency that is like the denomination is unknown to them, compared to like a stable currency where it's like, oh, it's $1, $1. And I feel like that has been a pitch for a long time, especially back when I first was asking the Wax team about those bridges. And they were like, oh, yeah, the pitch is that the community will create liquidity and list their assets for that stuff. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea, but I would like to see it actually happen.
I agree. The next show is next Saturday. I'm going to be doing these every week. So,
Yeah,
if there's any, man, if you have like any requests for people I should have on, I reached out to Rakuten the other day, one of the OIGs. I think it would be cool to talk to him.
Yeah. Lucas is also great from the Wax team. He's like the CFO or CTO or something.
Lucas would be great. I know he's a really busy guy and he probably doesn't want to deal with like whatever questions he's going to get on here, but
yeah, maybe
I'll reach out. I could ask, I don't know if he'll go for it.
Yeah, he came on our stream before, and he's like pretty great at like fielding those questions. I feel like he would do it.
I met him when I was in Vegas, like last year. We went out and got some food. Pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
He actually
is Kafer still the OIG?
He is. Yeah, there's three of them: Kafer, Rakuten, and Joseph.
Nice.
Yeah, Consumer Break. I mentioned this last week. I don't know why I didn't do it today. I just wasn't prepared, but I think there's no reason why I shouldn't also stream these to Twitch since it's really no extra effort. So I'll try to do that next week. What was I going to say? No, it's nice having other people on here to get other perspectives. Like Max knows a lot about DeFi. He undersold himself earlier, but I complain a lot about how like nobody on this chain thinks about DeFi stuff. Like he's one of the most knowledgeable guys I've ever talked to on this chain or anywhere really in terms of DeFi.
Thank you.
So
I guess I should add as part of like I make my full-time living from DeFi. Like I have for the last like 5 years, and I got into crypto like 10 years ago. So like around 2016, I had my husband quit his job that he didn't like because we were making good crypto money. And I continued to participate in all this DeFi nonsense. And I have a pretty solid understanding of how this stuff works to the point where I can live off it and my husband doesn't have to work, and we live in LA. So we do okay. I mean, well, like I live in a mansion in the hills or anything, but like this is not a cheap town.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can make a living off this stuff, especially for two people, it
blows my parents' minds every time. They're like, what do you do? And like, what do we tell people you do? And then they're like, well, I'm like, what do you tell people? And they're like, that you do Bitcoin stuff. And then they're always like, and he can live off that. And it's like, it seems like it. He doesn't ask us for money. So
it's funny because it's the same thing when I talk to my family. It's they have no idea like with the intricacies of all the stuff that I'm doing here as like a block producer. It's just like, hey, how's that Bitcoin thing going? I heard that's 60 grand now or whatever. Yeah. It's like, but that's not really. It's not so relevant to what I'm doing, but
I'll get like wellness checks when the market's really bad. They're like, oh, did you see the market's down? It's like, did you see? Yes, I like every day. I know what's happening. Like
exactly.
If you see me out like at lunch or something, you're like, hey, what's the price of Bitcoin? Like I know off the top of my head.
It's funny when sorry, it's funny when you get other people too. Like I try not to for the most part when people ask me like how to get into crypto and stuff. I'm like, man, just I don't want to be involved, but it's funny the times when you do that, and then like they know you've been in this space for like 5 or 10 years or whatever, and it's like, oh, you're getting text messages like, yo, did you see Bitcoin is so and so or this coin is? I'm like, yes, I watch literally all. I know what's going on with my money. Trust me.
I also love. I had like recently went on like a double date with a couple, and they were like talking with Paul. Paul recently was doing some writing for like a
Paul's your husband, I assume.
Yeah, Paul's my husband. So he does comedy, and so he does like this week he got like you can see him in the new YouTube sport commercial. That's like lots of CGI creatures and stuff. So he got that, and then he's gonna be in the like there's a DoorDash commercial coming out. So he does a lot of commercial acting, and that's what he wanted to do back when in 2016. It was like pursue it, quit this bullshit like thing and like do it because you're gonna regret if like you don't. And now he's like actually like on the verge of breaking into this industry in a way where like he got a call from people working at Legendary Pictures to like help do writing on a feature film script with like major celebrities at this point, which I was like, let's go, like you're getting it, fuck yeah. It makes me so happy to see that. But either way, I got sidetracked with that, but yeah, it's like I'll do like, I was talking with them on like this date, and they were like, oh, I heard those markets are pretty much dead. It's like, is there still anything going on there? And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, like I do a lot of liquidity mining, so it's like, yeah, like just today's $7 billion in trade volume on Uniswap. Like I don't know what dead means, so like maybe
Yeah.
like it depends on if you're like comparing it to like the forex market or something. Like sure, that's not a lot of money, but like
Yeah. Well, dead to them means they turned on CNBC or whatever,
yeah.
and it said like, yeah, the price is down today. Everything's died.
Or they're like, there's nothing happening anymore. It's like, no, there's still like trillions of dollars every year moving through those exchanges, and unlike the other, like, and you can participate in that, and you can participate in that passively, and like generally I won't get into it because like people are like, I'm like, I'll kind of give them a thing of like, hey, I love this stuff and I can talk your ear off about it, like how much do you actually want to know, and then
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
and
and
usually it's
also,
like, yeah, it still works, it's great, you can still participate and you can still do well. And then they'll be like, should I buy Bitcoin right now? It's just like, that's like, I don't know your financial situation. Like
yeah,
yeah,
there's
I don't
that
know.
side of it. There's the
Yeah.
side of like not wanting to give people advice, and then to me,
Yeah.
there's also like, man, I am locked in like 24 hours a day. Like I'll work literally
Yeah.
overnighters and stay up for 40 hours straight coding and working and not leave my house for months, and then finally push myself like, you have to go out tonight or you're going to snap. Like go out and do something and talk to people. And then I go out and someone's like, yeah, so tell me, like, so with the coding and the Bitcoin and blah blah blah. I'm like, man, please, like, I really don't want to talk about this right now. Like, it's not,
Dude,
you know.
that's, I have such a good like dynamic for that because my husband does like comedy. So like tonight there's the his team Pinot Noir is doing a show at UCB. So like I'll go out to the show. They're gonna drink a bottle of wine while they perform. So he'll be wasted afterwards, and then after we'll go to the bar with everybody, and like they don't want to talk crypto. It's great. Like we're gonna talk about comedy. We're gonna talk about like bullshit. I don't know. Like I get so much like if I didn't have that like connection, yeah, I feel like I would have to force myself to go do something because it's like I get so sucked into this and like hyper focused on stuff, and it's not like the time just like disappears. I don't feel like it doesn't feel like work. I find it fascinating. That's also like part of when people are like, because even when I got into visual effects, and I worked in like big feature film movies that like are also impressive when people are like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I almost won an Oscar twice doing this. Once for Guardians of the Galaxy, which that ended up going to Interstellar, which I saw that come in, and then the second time was for what was it, The Revenant. The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he gets attacked by the bear
With the
and stuff.
bear, yeah.
Yeah, so I did a bunch of like stuff where he like got like super skinny and emaciated, and he didn't actually lose weight, but like that kind of work we were gonna be assessed for the Oscar there, and that went to Ex Machina, which also really fucking awesome effects.
That was a great movie, yeah.
Yeah, but like I got to like do a lot of like really high fidelity like visual effects work and work directly with like the DP who won the Oscar for that movie, the Revenant one. He'd also DP'd like Birdman and like other huge projects, and so like you're working like directly with people like that, and it is fun and exciting, and you're like, doing crazy cool problem solving. But then you also have these conversations where people are like, oh, I always thought about getting into this, like should I like pursue this more? And my whole thing was like, well, before I got to that point, like I would go to school, learn this stuff for like 7 to 8 hours a day, and then I would go home, open my computer, and continue to do it into the night. And like that was my hobby as well. And so it's like, if that's you, then yeah, you should get into visual effects. But like if you're not already like for free putting in like 6 to 10 hours a day like on like making visual effects shit in like Photoshop or whatever like you currently know, then probably not. Like it's going to be a miserable job. Like I do this for 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, at the time when I used to work like that. And like you can't do anything for that long if you don't love it. So like a lot of people are like, you only see like, oh, big projects, like good money and stuff. But it's like, well, it's good money because of how many hours I work, not because it's like paid well. And the second that the movie is finished and is aired or the TV show airs, the job ends and you're back at square one. Like you lose that job, you're laid off, you have to find a new job at a new studio. You're like eventually you have connections that call you and give you work, but it's still like you're constantly starting over with a new team. You're constantly like I don't know. I got tired of that, after like 8 years of doing it. I was at the end, I was like the senior artist at a studio where we're doing a bunch of Ryan Murphy stuff for Netflix. So like we did like American Horror Story and like a bunch of Stephen King shows and stuff. But I don't know. It was like every time a project would air or end, like a season would end, it was like, okay, you're like furloughed or laid off, and like maybe we'll get another contract and like we will call you eventually, but you're on your own and you have to manage your finances in between these like giant vacuums of no money. And so like that's kind of like pushed me also into like understanding investment finance and kind of like primed me for the hobby of crypto as well, because like obviously all my visual effects hardware worked really well to mine cryptocurrencies, so there's a lot of overlap. Oh, yeah. But like I got really like I don't know, I feel like I got lucky just because I pursued stuff that I was actually interested in, and it has always done really well for me, like in the visual effects sense, where it's like I was doing that shit for free. And then I got into like, I got pretty high into the industry, and like if you Google my name you find like the long list of IMDb credits. But and then I got into like crypto and Bitcoin also from like, it was a passion. It's something I was already doing for free in my free time and I was getting into. And so it's like, I don't know, I feel like the best advice for anybody who's like, should I get into something like that? It's like, well, are you into it? If yes, then yeah, fuck yeah. Like if you're already into it and there's some like avenue you see to make it into some kind of like career, then definitely. But if it's about the money or about like the perception of like this is a glamorous job, it's fucking not. Like you're in front of your computer all day.
I think with all things in life too, it's like this can become a whole nother rabbit hole in itself, but
Yeah.
I'll try to make it quick. Like when people ask me when I first started coding or even now and stuff, like, how did you do that? Can you teach me how to, or like, how can I become a coder, or how can I do X, Y, and Z? And it's like, I think the same rules apply to every single topic, any endeavor that you could possibly want to get into in life. It's like, if you're not the type of person who knows in your brain before you even start something, I 100% know I will become successful at this because I'll do everything that it takes and I will focus on it 24 hours a day. And it's the only thing that I will be able to think about. Even when I'm sleeping, I'll dream about this shit. Like, that's how I am about everything that I get into. And that's why I know it doesn't matter if it's coding. It doesn't matter if it's something I know nothing about. Maybe tomorrow I decide I want to become an electrician. I know I'll be successful at it. Like, if you're not that person, I have a hard time. Like, yeah, I can guide you to some documents to read or whatever in a starting point. But at the end of the day, like, if you were the type of person who's going to actually succeed at something, you don't really need to ask in the first place, like, how do I do it? You will come with more specific questions, like, what's a good starting resource to check out? And then a day later, you'll come back and be like, well, how do I wire this wire to this wire in connection in a series with two batteries that are different voltages? And do I need a resistor in between? And can you transform this? Like, if you're not the type of person who's going to figure all that shit out on those questions on your own, like, you're not going to succeed at it most likely.
Yeah. That's so like, even when I was working at like big studios in visual effects work, like when I would be like getting tired of the shit I was working on, the way I would like take a break is I would just get up and walk to some other artist and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? And then like problem solve their shit. Cause it's just like, cause that's what you want to be doing. And it's like, I don't know. It's just like, hey, I'm tired of doing this on my own problem. Let me go find someone else's problem to fix. And it's like, like it's pretty clear to you. I feel like it's pretty clear if you find something that you like to that capacity where like you're willing to like do it, even like you're getting like, oh, let me clock out and then go home and do it more. That kind of shit is like, if you have something like that, then I can say, yes, you should pursue it. But yeah, I feel like you said, it's, I don't think there is like a book to follow on like how to, get into what your passion is. I feel like I'm also like privileged in the terms that like I was able to pursue stuff like art. A lot of friends that like were working with me in that field like had ass loads of debt, first of all, from the art school. Is not cheap, And then beyond that, it's like, well, I was able to evolve into, you know, like a crypto hobby that like I transitioned to a full-time thing now. But it's also like, I had the ability to do that because I didn't have to pay the same debts that friends I have, or like I had a safety net in like my family. Would I be able to move home if something went wrong, versus like I need to pay for my parents like to be able to afford their rent too, which other friends have to deal with that. So it's like, you know, I've definitely found a lot of success doing what I do, but I've also taken a lot of risks, and I also am not under the impression that everyone has the capacity to take the same risks. So it is for
Yeah,
that reason it's like
all about
I can't give you advice because like it doesn't apply. You know, you can't risk it all if you have fucking kids, or like if you have someone who relies on you in a way that I don't have, and like I can risk more because I maybe don't have that thing in my life, and now my advice is no longer like relevant to you, you know? So I feel like that kind of goes across the whole board again when it's like people ask for advice. It's just like, we need to like talk a lot about like where you are and what you're doing and what you want before like I can actually give advice that means anything to you. Like I can give advice that would be good for me, but that's about as good as it gets.
it's all about risk tolerance. Everybody's situation is different,
Yeah.
and there is no universal formula. But that's the dream of crypto, at least, that they sell you. You know, it
Mhm.
sounds like you're at least kind of living it. I'd say
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm
It's,
living it because I work all day long, but man, like I was poor and living in the back of my 30-year-old van a year ago, and now like I
yeah.
got a decent little chunk of money saved, and I'm making money every month. So I got a
It's,
nicer car now. Everything's like coming together. So
especially in the industry out here for film that I'm like most familiar with, because a lot of like people I know are like in that industry still. It's fucked in the in LA. All of like post production is currently being done in Vancouver and Toronto because Canada is paying subsidies for artwork like that. And then India just announced next year they're going to be introducing tax subsidies to like artist salaries again. So the chances of post production work coming back to LA this year, definitely not, because Canada's subsidies don't expire until the end of the year, and next year probably it goes to India. So most people I know are out of work and like struggling, and the fact that like I feel like there's almost this magic like to like the crypto industry in the sense that like it just exists and I can tune into it and I can make a living on it even while like the industry burns around me. Like everything like friends are having a hard time getting jobs like at a grocery store too, because it's just like dire. Like I mean LA also more than any other city I think has these ebbs and flows that are affected by, you know, work being moved in and out of the city. But yeah, right now it's like everybody I know is like struggling to find work or can't find jobs and is looking to settle for like anything, and even can't get a job as a clerk at the grocery store. And it's just like it feels like a level of freedom to have the work coming from, or the income coming from, you know, this distributed network, like international network of crypto assets, and understanding how to participate in that uh in order to make, you know, like a couple $100 every day is yeah, I don't know, it feels like magic at this point. You know, it's especially once you get to a point where like you understand how it works, you've established a portfolio, you have the assets to generate the income you want. It's like it's very little active work, you know. It's like for the most part, if there's a show to go to or like someone invites me to the bar, it's like, yeah, I mean, let's go. You know, it's like, you know, I
yeah,
don't have, yeah. So it's like, that is just unfucking real to me. And it really changed my perspective also of like, because I used to work, like I said, 16 hours a day. You know, I made decent money, but it's like I made even more money doing way less in crypto. And it's just so frustrating because it's like, man, all these people are so hardworking, talented, and they want to, you know, make a fair living for putting in an insane amount of effort, and it's just like not possible, while at the same time it is possible to just make an ungodly amount of money if you just have money and know where to put it,
oh,
which is
especially if you get to a point where you have a solid foundation of capital. Like if you have even like we were talking about stables before. I mean, of course, there's smart contract risk, so you have to factor that
Yeah,
in. But like assuming things go well and you don't get into like a hacked protocol. I mean, if you can build up, let's say 6 figures, even like $100,000 even, and
that's
find
enough.
something that
Yeah,
generates 10% APR, which is completely like reasonable
very
everywhere.
very doable with really really tolerable risk.
Yeah, and you're in a place to like either A, pay for a crappy apartment or a decent apartment in a small area maybe, or like
Yeah,
you could almost pay your bills off of that, like
yeah.
at
Off
least supplement them enough
if
to
you can do
pursue things.
20 if you can do 20%, which is still pretty like rationally achievable at the moment, especially while the markets are good. I think when the markets go deep bear, you'd be lucky to pull like 6 to 7, which
Yeah,
is still fantastic. I don't know, like I know we're all spoiled in crypto, but like 7%, like either way. But like 20 right now on like 100 grand, you can live pretty like pretty well in like an apartment, like go out to eat, and like covers your rent, covers your like cost of living to the extent where it's like it's doable. And then that's so frustrating because it's like, how hard is it to make that same amount of money, that same $20,000, if you don't have money and if you have to sell your labor for it? And it's like, yeah, I don't know, it's frustrating because especially once you start getting into like, like I bought some Bitcoins and they came up, and then like, started to see what the hobby on the side that I was doing. At one point, it was like outpacing my career. And I was like, every day I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be like, oh, I like overnight since last night, I can claim these rewards, I can compound this thing. And that adds up to more than I'm going to make in the next 16 hours of working on this project. And then by the time I finish those 16 hours, I'll be able to claim again, and I'll have made more than I made actually working. So it's like at some point, the value of like your time is like way higher than you ever thought it was. Like I used to
yeah,
sell an hour of my work for like let's see, that I started for $18 an hour working on a pretty big movie for fucking $18 an hour. It was like G.I. Joe Retaliation, but doing some bullshit like grunt work for like a visual effects studio, $18 an hour. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's very frustrating to see that like that is nothing compared to
it's
like, you know,
it's
like,
absolutely insane.
and
But
you put
that's
so much work into that, and it's so much like of your time, and it's stressful, and it's like, especially those bottom like jobs, like you there's so much on you. And then I'm like, then you see like, later on, like I got into like this stuff, and on the side, and then you wake up in the morning and claim, or even like when Our Planet was printing at one point, my Our Planet mine was paying like $1,000 a day. Like I had like 600,000 ARX
ether.
or
Oh,
ether, yeah, per hour. Like 600,000 back when that was worth like $30 or $40. So it was like making $40 an hour, 24 hours a day, and that's just with this nonsense NFT stuff. At the same time, these other LPs and like, so it was crazy and really just frustratingly eye-opening to see. Like, it's not like the problem with people struggling and working super hard to make their ends meet isn't a problem with the availability of money. The money's fucking there. It's just
it's
like
climbing
ridiculous.
over the initial hump to get
Yeah.
to get that initial stack of capital. Like that's the name of the game, right? You
Yeah.
start off with
Everybody
nothing.
knows.
Maybe you
Uh,
don't have income yet. The first step of the process is to try and create a way to trade your labor
Yeah.
for enough money to start generating that stack, and then eventually get to a point where you actually get to trade your time for money instead of your labor. Like you have actually put a value on your time.
Yeah.
Like I'm making this much money every hour. I no longer want to trade labor to do this when I can now invest
Yeah.
time into building this stack in other ways.
Right. Especially when that time is like compensated so poorly and taxed so aggressively. Like I pay more taxes to go work a job. If I was getting paid what I wanted to make, what I want to make in crypto, if I get paid that the same amount, the difference that it costs me in taxes to pay for the labor taxes versus the gains taxes that I make, it's like almost 30% more. So it's like, I'm like, the government is disincentivizing me to work. Like it's literally a better deal not to work and to have your money work. But everybody knows it takes money to make money. So it's the biggest fucking insider's game of all time. And the only way to do it is to have money. The only way to have money is, well, it takes money to make money. So how are you going to fucking get in if you don't have money? So it literally, like, you're just stuck selling your labor and you're never going to get into that game because you cannot work enough hours to make the kind of money it takes, like at the grocery store. It's just impossible. So it's like this fucking catch-22 insider's game, and everybody knows it. Like, I guarantee you everybody has heard it takes money to make money. But if you break it down, that's like, oh, so making money is an insider's game. Like, why is that okay?
Yeah, well, that's also, when you brought up risk tolerance earlier, it's kind of like if you're in that position where you kind of have no hope and you can manage pull off, a $500 or $1,000 somewhere to throw into some shit coin, like at that point you got to hope for a little bit of magic and maybe something does it, multiple X's, and then you have your starter seed capital to play with.
Yeah, and that's also, I feel like, it creates that like desperation, and that's where people generally lose. Some people will, it's good, but it's like same with like, I mean, I trade constantly, and like I think I made like a decent loss recently. I think like maybe a $4,000 loss, which sucks. Like, it's a lot of money. No, it doesn't fucking like matter. Like, that's a lot of money to lose. And so it's like the first thing I want to do is like, well, let me make a bigger size move to make it back. Absolutely fucking not. That is fucking stupid. Like, that's like, you stick to your like rules, you stick to like a discipline, and it's really fucking difficult, especially when you've made a big loss or you have nothing to lose. So your risk tolerance is infinite. It's like, well, I have nothing. So if I get this $100 and throw it at something and it goes to zero, well, I still have nothing. That's okay. So it's like, I don't know. It makes you too tolerant of stuff. And that's, I don't know. That desperation area is kind of where the meme coins thrive.
Yeah, I had a guy reach out to me recently. I don't want to put like anybody's business out there, so I'll keep it vague. But like, he took a big loss, and he was like, really, like, dude, what can I put this in right now? And I was like trying to, like, please, bro. I was like almost begging the guy, like, don't do whatever it is that you're thinking about doing right now, because like, you still, from the sounds of it, have half of your money left, and it sounds like it's at least like a relatively significant sum. Like, you could do something not that risky and like at least get back what you lost over the course of a few months or a year. Like, please
take a
don't
breath.
Please
take a breath, because like it's so easy to view your money when it's like just gone down. It's easy to view it as less or little money because you just had more, but it's a lot. Like, that amount of money when you have nothing is a lot of money, and keeping that perspective is not easy after you've had a money printer printing $1,000 a day for like 5 months straight. So it's like that also, it makes the money feel fake when stuff comes up. So it's like, it's monopoly money, it's play money, and it's a lot easier to spend play money than it is to spend real money.
I talk about this a lot, man, about how it's why I told myself, and I didn't listen either, so I'm really mad at myself for it, but I told myself, like, when I got to a certain number, when I started off and had nothing, it's like, the next time I get to like this number, don't care what's happening in the market. I'm converting it all to stables, and I'm just walking away for a week to just take a breath and gather my thoughts.
Yeah,
I had some stables, but I didn't do that. Some of it's locked up, to be fair, and like staking pools and whatnot. But and then seeing it go down, I was really mad at myself. But like, part of the reason for that is because of exactly what you just said. You just see numbers on a screen all day, and it's very hard. Like, I was telling myself, if this money was sitting on a table in the form of cash in front of me right now, like, I guarantee I would behave so much differently.
Yes.
Than what I'm doing with these numbers on the screen, because none of it feels real right now.
I literally like illustrated the point of crypto like that to my dad, because he was like, he had his seed phrase that after we like set up a wallet and I was showing him how to do stuff, and he had like left it out for like 3 days after I was like, it's the equivalent of that money. And so I just took his seed phrase and I like cashed out like $10,000 as singles, as ones. So it's like a huge stack of dollars, and I just laid it like where the seed phrase was, and then like he was like, oh shit, like what's, and it's just like, why are you worried about that when like the the seed here has more than that on it, and I told you it's the same thing. Like, it's anyone who picks this up, it's cash. Like, they can take this from you, like, and you wouldn't even know it's gone the way you're fucking treating it. But like, yeah, I remember doing that. Like, it's like, oh, because like when he saw the stack of money, he behaved very differently than when he saw like the notepad with the words on it, you know. And it really is hard to kind of like view this stuff as the same thing as that stack of cold hard cash, especially again, you know, when like it's your NFT farm is printing, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of, you know, monopoly token, you know, and then like it still feels like monopoly token when you're spending it. Like, I definitely bought NFTs that were worth like in dollar amounts at the time, like $400 to $400 or $500 for single assets. Like, I would never fucking do that with actual money I worked for, but you know,
it's just such a huge mental disconnect, you know.
Yeah.
And it's especially when you have a bull market and the prices are going crazy. Like, nobody wants to listen. I was having so many discussions in Telegram channels like a few months back, or, you know, when we were all probably a little bit emotional because the wax price and stuff, and like trying to like, listen, man, seriously, you know, like the bull market does not last forever. Like, seriously, you gotta, you know, like think about this a little bit and like protect yourself. And everyone's just like, it's definitely going into late 2025 and you're going to have all this money and it's going to be worth this much. And it's like, man, some people are going to be in a tough spot when 2025 comes around and it's already over. If that happens, I'm not saying it will, but like you have to plan for both cases and treat it as real money, because
people don't want to hear that though, especially when they're on that high. Like, I definitely had those conversations too. When wax was around like 36, 37 cents, I was like charting it. And the videos on demand, you can still go on Twitch and find this, where I was talking about wax like looking like it's shifting bearish, and then I noted that the like bottom support was 9 cents, which is like, and it was 36 cents at the time, and like as many people reached out and were like, that's insane, like it'll never get that low. And then I knew a few people like in the space who had like 6 figures worth of like wax NFTs and assets in their wallet, and very active people. And I reached out to them in like DMs and I was like, hey, like, by the way, like, I know you're like this wallet represents like a vast majority of your net worth, and I think you should like consider pulling out maybe like 6 figures or whatever. And those people were like, nah, like I don't need to, like, kind of, they were like, I don't want to hear it. And
I can ROI in 2 months, bro.
And I didn't push either. I was just like, I think this, you know, if it was me, I would do this. And then if they were like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that, it was like, okay, great. Like, I just wanted to make sure I said it. And yeah, I know a few of those people ended up, you know, obviously the market's down from their 6-figure portfolio. They're down to maybe like 3 or 4 figures now, if they're lucky, and they have to go like work jobs again. They had been like, you know, coasting off of this crypto for so long. But, you know, in retrospect, it's a lot easier to see that value and be like, I wish I'd taken it. But when you're sitting on it, like, I saw it very much firsthand. Like, everybody was like, nope, I don't want to hear how far it's going to go down. And nope, I don't like think I should hedge my bets. And I mean, I learned those lessons the hard way too. You know, when I first bought my Bitcoin, I rode that roller coaster up and down.
I killed it in January of 2018. Wasn't so great for the next couple of years, and I started from square one basically at the end.
Yeah.
And
the ICOs ate a lot of my, like, lot, like 90%, I'd say, of like my crypto at the time.
And for me, I always say too, when people think I'm crazy, like they're like, oh, you held too long. Well, yeah, maybe I could have sold the top, but my biggest issue in my mind was that I did not have a job. Like, I didn't have a source of income during those bear markets. So during that time when prices were down 90% and I was living in an apartment and had to pay insurance, you know what I mean? I was spending stuff that was down 95% to pay my bills.
Yeah, that's where it gets hard. Like, and that's also like, I mean, like, I make a decent like amount of like living, but my portfolio does not grow because I spend cost of living out of it. Like, even like the market's been up and down, and like I feel like I'm pretty flat. And if I didn't have to pay rent or stuff, or if I had like a job that made me money, I could probably grow the assets that I have in like 5 to 10 years into like an insane like hedge fund amount. But it's like, well, because I pay, you know, like cost of living expenses, like I'd say $3,000 to $4,000 a month, like I pull out of my crypto wallets. That's $3,000 to $4,000 a month that would compound into these strategies and not just be 3,000 or 4,000. That would generate the money that I make with it. So it's like, it would be great. Yeah. And not having like that income does suck. But at the same time, it's like, I haven't worked since like, so I kept working after 2016 after I had my husband quit his job, and he hasn't worked like a job other than like doing, writing jobs or like acting jobs that he wants to do. He hasn't worked since then. And then I stopped working like 2020. So it's been a long time. And I feel like the value I put on just like my free time now is like, I don't know that jobs are paying that much money. Like, even if I have to spend my crypto, like, I don't think I'll look back on my life and regret not working for somebody to make a paycheck versus like living life.
Yeah, that's the biggest draw for me, even though I work 24/7 basically to be competitive and just because I'm a hyper focused type of guy, like I can't half-ass anything.
Yeah.
So I don't have that much freedom, but just the fact that I don't have to be told, like, if I want to wake up at 6:00 p.m. tomorrow, like I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's like hard to like for someone to pay you out of that. That's going to be a tall order, I think.
Yeah, I would say so for sure.
Oh no. Lost a huge amount. Huge mistakes. No.
We've all been there, man. It's not how many times you get knocked down, whatever. Don't you love when people give you cliches like that after you lost a shitload of money?
Oh yeah, it's the best. I will say the worst one was that Harmony hack for me, and that I lost like almost 40% of what I had in that in the matter of one day, and it was like $36,000, like gone, like that gone, and that represented at the time maybe like 6 months of active trading, active farming, like work, making that money, and when that happened, I pulled everything back to Ethereum mainnet, like kind of took stock. I sent out a bunch of messages to people who I knew were like exposed and was like, do what you fucking can. And I also, like I said, we noticed 4 minutes in, and it's really, really difficult to understand what's actually happening that quickly in real time. So people were asking that. I was like reaching out, they're like, what should I do? Because at the time the peg was still like, 90 cents or whatever. And they're like, should I sell it all? I don't know. Maybe it comes back. Maybe
should I buy more?
Yeah. Should I buy in? And like, so, and then like my whole thing was just like, in the moment I was like, look, I don't know what's happening, but I see the wallet contract address is empty. Just get the fuck out. If you can get out, get out. Like, that's what I'm doing. So I pulled everything out. Like I said, I took a like 35-40% loss, pulling like 100-ish grand out. And so I ended up with like 60, which is still a shitload of money, but like I lost $36,000 in that one move. And like the first, like it hit really fucking hard. I walked, like I shut off my shit after that. And I stopped doing crypto stuff for like 2 days, that's a lot. Man. That's a lot though. But that's like, also I walked away because it was like, I don't want to come back and be like, I need to make this back and make some kind of desperate like mistake. So I was like, I'm back in stable coins. Like, I need to take a breath here. Like, and the big part like of the issue was I knew the risk of holding bridge exposed assets. I just overextended into it, and like, it was my fault. And the part that really sucked, like losing that kind of money sucks, but there was other people who I made savvy to those positions who lost money. That sucks even more. Like, I lost fucking people, other people participated and lost money, and they wouldn't have done that shit if I didn't tell them to. And that really changed my like, I don't endorse things anywhere nearly as easily as I used to. And I definitely wouldn't tell someone to do something I'm not doing myself. And even now, like, there's stuff that I do myself that I don't know that I would recommend people do. Because obviously I was doing that shit too, and I got fucked. It really sucked. Yeah. And yeah, like there's like, yeah, you just feel like, I don't know. Yeah, it just feels like, you don't want to go on kind of like, fuck this, everything sucks. But it's also like, it's a great moment to like take stock again for me. And like in that moment, it was like, I live my life without like answering to somebody for work. I don't have to like what really happened. It's like food still tastes great. I still have a loving like partner. We're going to go have fun tonight and do this and that. And so it's like, you know, while the balance sheet just took a huge haircut, like life is still great. And that was perspective too. That was like, I don't know, all that stuff is just, it's fun to get like, you know, encouraged to take stock of your life and your positions, especially in the wake of something devastating like that. So hopefully something like that happens for you too, Consumer Break, where like you make those mistakes, but you also like kind of see the silver lining and it you know, comes out like, I don't know, personally, I have a lot more of an ability to like tolerate positions that are like at a loss because of like knowing that, hey, like my life outside of what I have in my fucking crypto wallet is not, you know, is not going to fall apart if my crypto wallet falls apart. And that also is yeah, I don't know, there's a lot
What
to life beyond just cryptoing.
when I had what I just talked about with 2017, I didn't say how much I made, but it was a lot, you
Yeah,
know, like it was life
yeah,
changing. I grew up on the streets, like I was homeless when I
yeah,
was a teenager and shit. So, you know, coming
yeah,
from nothing and then having like everything was like the
yeah,
greatest feeling ever, you know, like I did this myself.
yeah,
And the ride down was so brutal. Like there was a period of time where I did go through that, like, man, wow, like what do I do now? You know, like I didn't even know what to think. Like, but
yeah,
eventually, once I got over that kind of shock and like let it sink in, um, I thought about it and I started working on some new stuff. And I was like, honestly, like I'm genuinely happy that I get a second chance to do the same thing all over again from scratch now. Like it's gonna be the greatest feeling ever when I do get to that point again. And I'm like,
yeah,
I didn't do it once, I did it twice in my life. Like
right,
you know, the cliche about the journey being the best part. Like, look, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I don't wish that I was a millionaire right now, but
yeah,
like the journey really is like those days when you wake up when you're working on something and it's going well and you know it's going somewhere. There's
yeah,
no better feeling than that. Like once you actually get there, it's kind of like, all right, what? So, you know, I can get a nicer car now and, you know, get some hotter girls or whatever to like who care about my money. But at the end of the day, like the journey up is the best part. So
yeah,
being able to relive it, um, I'm pretty grateful for
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, so there's that whole silver lining, and then the whole like, I love the analogy of like tuition. It's the cost of tuition.
Yeah.
Like tuition's not cheap. You know, some
School of Hard Knocks.
people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go get their degrees. So you might as well consider it in the same like vein. But yeah. Oh,
Look at all the athletes at their prime while on the journey. Conor McGregor. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, man. I envy athletes a lot too because I know. Yeah, we're going all over the place here. It's been like 3 hours already, but we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up soon after this.
I'm
But I
having
envy
fun.
athletes so much because part of the issue with coding, right?
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm an all-in kind of guy. Sometimes you guys have seen me in the past, and you see me like yoked, you know, just like, damn, that dude's so jacked. And now I'm like
Mm.
all scrawny. You'll see me other times where I look like a ghost and I'm all pale and scrawny, and it's like it must be so nice to be able to compete athletically and like working on your body and becoming a peak specimen is like your job. So you don't have to balance the two.
Yeah.
You can go all in on this thing and it's also your work that you get paid for. Like that's got to be awesome. But yeah, at the same
That
time,
is awesome.
the ride down after that, like if you think about like Michael Jordan retiring or something, I mean, it's got to be like that high of being a champion for your whole life and competing towards something, and then what do I
Yeah.
do now? Like,
Yeah. It's also like those highs come with lows too, you know, like man, and the lows are low.
but yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, especially like losing in a championship match or whatever.
Yeah. Like, or like, yeah, disqualifying because you did some dumb shit or whatever. Like, oof. But yeah, it's a good choice.
All right, man. I thought
Thank
we
you.
were at 3 hours. I think we
Yeah.
should probably.
On that note there, right? Thank you.
But
I feel like part of that is we love the space too, and I feel like it comes across. We've been participating for so long, and it's clearly not like the people, like I was saying earlier. I think the people who are on Wax now are like the core of the Wax community. So it's really fun to see like everybody who's here and everyone's who still participates in these things. I really am looking forward to the time when like these markets return, the kind of like hype comes back, and when these people are the core of and the pillars of this community, who are, you know, like guiding the new people away from like the returning scammers and all that stuff. So I don't know, I'm excited, and I feel like while I have participated in cryptocurrency and blockchains like across the board for a long time, the kind of like personal connections I've made and like friendships I've made on the Wax chain are like way beyond anything I've encountered on any other blockchain. And I think the people here are the big kind of like what like the dark horse, the hidden gem here, that it's hard to quantify that in dollar amounts, but like, man, the communities on Wax and like the friends that I've made and the people who I still know and like play Counter-Strike fantasy with and stuff now, like that hasn't happened on other blockchains, and I've been on other blockchains for like 8 years longer than Wax. So yeah, it's just thanks for joining us, guys. This is really fun to like see the community out here.
I've met like 5 or 10 people in real life through Wax that I would have never met, and they're like some of the greatest friends I would say I have. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I met Love Handles was in here earlier. I've met him in real life. I stayed with him in Texas for a while. Monster Vision, Jumbie, and NF Terra Mike. I don't know if you know those guys.
yeah,
There's been a couple others you might not know, but yeah, Wax is awesome, man.
It is. It's fun. It's fun to see everybody here, and I really enjoyed coming on and bullshit and shooting the shit. And
Yeah,
I love what you're building too. So obviously it's a easy sell to be like, you want to come chat? Like, fuck yeah, all the time.
I appreciate it a lot. I'm sure the audience does, and you're welcome back anytime. It'd be nice to have you on again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll have Lewis come on too. Lewis knows the Wax space really fucking well too.
I was gonna say, man, when I asked you to come on, I was gonna say like Lewis is welcome too. I just thought like, I don't know. There's not a lot of viewers. It's a new channel, and I thought maybe I was imposing on you to begin with, so I felt bad like expecting Lewis too. But man, he's always welcome too. So next time if you want to bring Lewis, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and he knows the space super well, like the social side of the Wax circles and like who's doing what, and yeah, I mean, he's an active community like leader in Wax for what lasts like 3.5 years. So yeah, I love his insight on the space too. So definitely we'll do that.
Sounds great, man.
Sweet.
Yeah, I guess that's gonna be it. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll be on next Saturday. Hopefully we'll have another guest. We'll see how it goes. But yeah. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us.